Master, how do you know that Hui Bao can kill Mingzuan? After all, Shifu didn't even touch Hui's Bao. Here Yi Tian to allow, Shin Crack just asks away. Yi Tian coldly looked at the Shin Crack. I didn't expect that you asked such a naive question. Seeing that Yi Tian's face changed, Xuanxie didn't feel that he was childish, but he still lowered his head. I'm stupid, please give me some advice. Yi Tian sighed and said, have you ever thought about the deeper reason why Xianming sect attached itself to the disciples of Xiandao sect twice? And one of them was the leader of Xianming sect. And Xianming sect was ordered by Mingxiu. What was the purpose of entering into Xiandao sect? And why did Mingzuan give Tian Luo net to Zuanmingzong? According to the analysis of being a teacher, there is only one thing in Xiandazong that is worthy of paying such a high price, which is Huiyagong. Does this behavior mean that they are afraid of Huiyagong? Why are you afraid? Isn't it because Hui's Bao has lethality to Mingxiu? Of course, the above reasons are just wishful thinking. After all, this is not the only answer. Therefore, in order to verify this, when Xiangang took out Hui's Bao, I saw that Mingzuan's soul trembled. This was an instinctive reaction. It was instinct that made it more real. What's more, why did Mingzun take the 3 arrows with him? Could he use them? No, the reason why he took them with him was that he was not sure that he would give them to other practitioners or put them elsewhere. He was afraid that the people of Xiandazong would get the 3 Hui arrows. The Bao of Hui and the original arrow of Hui are definitely a nightmare of Mingzun. That's why he wanted to escape from the field shield for the first time. After listening to Yi Tian's words, Xuanxie had a sudden look on his face. Master said so, I finally understand. Master is right. It's the disciples who are too naive. Yi Tian said with a smile, I can't blame you all. Many things have to see the essence through the appearance. The so-called methods are all empty, only cause and effect are not empty. A lot of things are linked up. Only by finding out the essence of affairs from the clues can we be a real wise man. I have been taught. He bowed down. Yunzhong also bowed down, and the rest of the Xians and Yuns also bowed down. Everyone understands that Yi Tian seems to be answering the question of Shin Crack. In fact, he is trying to point out some truth. Although these people are old monsters who have lived for countless years, they must spend more time on cultivation if they can reach this level of cultivation. Therefore, some things are not as clear as Yi Tian who has lived for 2 generations. Well, there's no need to be polite. Next, we're going to arrest the remaining evils of Xianming sect. Yi Tian waved his hand and pointed to the distance. See? There is an island there, and the people of the Xianming sect are hiding in a cave under the island. You will know when you have a look. At this time, Yi Tian looked far away and pointed to a shadow at the edge of the sky. No one asked Yi Tian how to know. In these people's eyes, Yi Tian is omnipotent. It seems that it is normal to know whether Xianming sect is in Luotian spirit realm or to Taiman spirit realm, and it is also normal to know where they are hiding in Luotian spirit realm. Yi Tian is unfathomable. Yi Tian is omnipotent. Yi Tian is invincible. Such a label has been firmly attached to the hearts of every monk present from today on. And for Yi Tian to control the Shen run of Dun Tiansua, his face also showed an obvious color of worship, and unconsciously his waist also sat more straight. Although they talked while flying away, their speed was not affected. The dark shadow in their eyes soon spread out in the field of vision. As Yi Tian said, it is an island. When people were about to get close to the edge of the island, all of a sudden, figures flew out of the island and away. It's really a remnant of Xianming sect. With a big drink, Xuanxie chased those figures. As he chased, some monsters flew out of him and scattered them. It turns out that there are also Xianming clan members in the sea. Disciples go to capture them. Seeing that there were only 100 monks of Xianming sect flying high above the sky, Xuanxie was more than enough to deal with them alone, so Yunzhong paid attention to them. But as expected, a disciple of Xianming sect tried to escape by water, ready to escape in chaos, and then fell into the sea in a flash, releasing many monsters. The monks of the Xians and Yuns, who were not allowed to be called, followed their own masters. Xian run. After everyone left, Yi Tian said.
Xianran on Dun Tiansuo stood up and said respectfully, "Master, I'm here."
Yi Tian didn't object to this kind of address. He pointed to the next part of the island and said, "I'll give you a great credit.
Under the grottos at the bottom of the island, there is a interlayer, in which there are 6 mystical monks. Because they were poisoned by the corpse poison and the corpse devil insect, they should be all frozen.
They can't move, and they seem to have no breath, it's like a dead man. The credit is yours. No wonder I don't feel anything. I'm just like a dead man. It's easy to catch."
"Thank you for your help," the Shen crack nods to say, then embraces a fist to the leaf day. The body shape ejects from Dun Tiansuo, pounces to the island.
After Shenron left, Yi Tian sent out a divine idea.
After a while, a 4-star heartworm flew from the top of the island and was put into the spirit beast ring by Yi Tian. On that day, when he left Bugue Island and went to Xiandazong, Yi Tian left 22 heartworms to monitor the movement of Bugue Island. One of them just saw that the Xianming sect disciple left Bugue Island with the 6 poisonous Xianming sect monks. Under Yi Tian's divine instructions, the heartworm quietly followed the island, and they're watching here without knowing it. If it wasn't for this heartworm, no matter how capable he was, he would not have known that the remaining evils of Xianming sect were hidden in such a remote island.
In addition, there is an interlayer in the cave.
Ordinary monks can only sense the fluctuation of mana by virtue of their divine thoughts, but without the source of heaven's eye, they will not feel those sealed monks without any fluctuation of mana.
Before long, Xuanxie and Yunzhong returned with their children.
Naturally, none of the targets they pursued escaped the net and were killed completely. In the grottos, Xianrun found a hidden interlayer inside. There was a cave under the grottos.
The secret door was extremely closed by the people of Xuanmingzone.
There was no trace from the naked eye. If it wasn't for Yi Tiantian, Shenron would never find the trick below even if he stood in the cave above. It was by using magic power that he opened the thick layers that he saw the 6 frozen monks in the cave below. This 6 people, Shenron all know, also be regarded as old acquaintances. When the people of Xuanmingzong were attacked by Yi Tian with poison, Shenron saw the miserable appearance of those poisoned people.
How dare he come into contact with these frozen people? Using mana, he sent these people into an empty Shumi ring. Then he stayed in the grottos for a while. When Xuanxie and Yunzhong came back, he moved into the first grottos. Then he moved again, and the whole person flew out of the cave like a streamer. The next moment, he appeared in front of the crack. "Master, we found a dark room under the grottos.
We captured 6 monks of Xianming sect who were poisoned by corpse poison and corpse devil insect.
Bai Xuanren put them into Shumi ring. We specially reported to the master and asked him to make a decision." With these words, Shenron gestured to a building and took out the Shumi ring with 6 Xianming sect monks. Xuanxie took the Shumi ring, took a deep look at Shenron, and then said, "Shenron, well done, this time you have made great achievements before accepting the clan rules. After you leave, I will be kind to you, take good care of your son, and let him practice successfully. You can also close your eyes. Finally, it's the moment."
If it's not for Yi Tian's promise to intercede for him, Shenron may find it hard to accept the fact that Shenron wants to enforce the clan rules on himself.
However, when Xuanxie talks about it, Yi Tian doesn't respond.
Shenron secretly glances at Yi Tian and kneels down in front of Xuanxie. "Master, Shenron knows that he is ashamed of the Xuanjia family, but Nianzai Shenron has not caused any loss to the Xuanjia family, and I have been trying my best to make up for my mistakes and faithfully carry out the master's orders." This time, he risked his life to go deep into the grottos, and in the sea of fog, Shenron was also fighting to death. For the sake of this, please give Shenron a chance to continue to serve the Xians and give me a chance to repent. With words, Shenron gestured. In a flash, a pair of skeletons appeared in front of him. There were a lot of them. "It's a lot of credit, but it's impossible to spare you. Merit is merit, and fault is fault. I've been very kind and promised to take good care of the Xuanjia people. If not, you will betray the Xian family. Not only will you be subject to the rules and regulations of the clan, but also the other members of the Xian family. Today's way of dealing with it is very kind of me. Xuanxie is also a good actor." After Shenron had said that, Xuanxie looked at the skeletons and pondered for a moment. Then his face immediately changed, his eyes twinkled, and his eyes showed a murderous opportunity. Even other people on the scene believed that Xuanxie was really angry. Not only others but also Xianrun himself. At this time, Tian has not yet asked for his favor. Xianrun is a little worried, and he can't take the initiative to find Tian in front of everyone. In this way, he is suspected of using Xuanxie's master to suppress Xuanxie. If Tian pretends to agree and still doesn't plead for himself, then his behavior will completely offend Xuanxie to death. If he pleads with Xuanxie again, he will die. For a moment, Xianrun thought about several possibilities, but he could only plead with Xuanxie again, and he felt it was not appropriate to do anything else. Master, it was Xuanfu who colluded with Xuanmingzong and intended to betray Xuanmingzong, but I only worked as the master for a few days.
I know little about this. Moreover, at that time, Xianrun was coerced by Jian Bronze, the master of Xuanmingzong.
Considering the life and death of Xuanmingzong, Xianrun and Xuanmingzong had nothing to do with each other. Now there are only a few people left in the Xian family, and all the others are killed.
This is the most cruel punishment for Xianrun.
Xianrun will feel guilty for it all his life.
I'm not afraid of death.
I just want to have a chance to make atonement for the Xian family and the other members of the Xian family, and ask the master to make it right. Xianrun said with both voice and emotion.
He lowered his head deeply and kowtowed to Xuanxie.
Then he kept kowtowing, never raising his head, waiting for the final decision of Xuanxie. A burst of suffocating silence. For Xianrun, it seems that time passes like a year. At this time, Tian still has no response. Xianrun's hope is shattered a little bit, and his heart is gradually cool. At the end of the day, there was still a crack in the air. Xianrun, this matter has not been discussed. Emotionally, I want to leave you, but from the perspective of clan rules, the crime of betraying the family is absolutely impossible to forgive.
You have a reason. I'm very kind and allow you to see your son and other people again before implementing the clan rules. Shin Crack finished saying, looked at Tian, thought in the heart, Master, why don't you beg for mercy? If you don't speak, there will be no other reason for me to delay after the meeting. If Xianrun asks for land again and again, his disciple will be free from his sin. How can he explain to all the members of the Xianrun family? Do you want it or don't you have to say something?
Who knows, even at this time, Tian still didn't say a word. As a last resort, with a gesture, he took out the time and space tower from Shumi Ring.
A magic power hit the magic cave.
The cave zoomed in and fell on the ground. Then, another magic power came out, and the magic weapon on the gate of the cave disappeared immediately. Let's go out of the cave and meet Xianrun for the last time. The Xian Crackface has no facial expression ground to greet away. With his shouts, more than 200 members of the Xian family's side branch came out of the magic weapon cave. At that time, a young monk was Xuanpu, Xianrun's son.
Father. Xuanpu naturally heard the voice of Xuanxie.
He also knew that Xuanxie was now the head of the Xuanjia family. When he heard that Xuanxie said that he would see his father for the last time, and then looked at Xianrun kneeling on the ground, he knew that there was no room for recovery.
Xuanpu's heart was like a knife, but he didn't dare to contradict Xuanxie. He quickly walked over and knelt down in front of Xianrun, Father. After a call, he could not speak anymore. Then Xuanpu looked up at the sky and tried not to shed his tears. Then his eyes became firm. Moving his body with his knees, he knelt down in front of Xian Crack side by side with Xianrun. His voice was hard and said, Master, Xianpu was willing to lead his father to death together. We are also willing to lead the dead together with the Xianrun family leader. As soon as Xuanpu's words were finished, more than 200 clansmen came out of the magic cave, knelt down with Xianrun and Xuanpu, and said aloud. This scene is extremely moving, especially let Xianrun's eyes have tears in the spin, almost burst into tears. When things developed to this extent, Xuanzhen's face became more and more gloomy, but this kind of face was only for the side members of the Xian family, especially for Xianrun, but his eyes glanced at Tian. I thought to myself, Master, what's wrong with you? Do you want Xianrun? Xuanxia's gloomy face, combined with his cold glance at the master, was the expression of Xuanxia's anger to the extreme.
At this time, Yi genius slowly came over and said to the side branch of the Xian family, Yi was originally a person with a different surname. He should not have cared about the internal affairs of the Xian family. But Yi has a saying that he is not happy. When the master of the Xian family hears that you have been taken away, he is very anxious. He takes the children of the Xian family to fight against the first immortal sect in the spirit realm of Luo Tian, even to save you. After saving you, I know that you have been poisoned by the 9 robber insects, and only when you are on Bugue Island can you get the antidote of Kixing KO. The master of Xian family takes the monk of Xian family to kill Bugue Island and get the antidote. What's all this for? It's not for you Xuanjia people. But you don't have the idea of gratitude in your heart, and you are still forced to die in front of the master of the Xuanjia family. Do you think it's right for you, the master of the Xuanjia family, and the children of the Xuanjia family who fought with blood and blood? Yi Tian's words made the people of the Xian family slowly lower their heads and keep silent. State-owned laws, family rules, no square.
Yi Tian continued, the master of Xuanjia's family is compassionate. He is not a murderer, but why does he want to kill Xian Run?
It's not to maintain the clan rules of the Xian family.
Otherwise, how can we convince the public? Yi thinks it's light to kill Xian Run.
He should be punished more severely.
There is a saying that life is not like death.
Yi thinks it is better to let him live not like death.
It's coming, it's finally coming. After hearing what Yi Tian said, Xian Run is ecstatic.
Yi Tian finally speaks for himself. Before that, even Xian Run couldn't figure out whether Yi Tian wanted to let himself die or live. But as soon as this sentence was finished, he immediately understood that Yi Tian didn't mean to break his promise, but wanted to wait for the best time. He wanted to give enough reasons to Xuanxie and try his best to promote the integration of Xuanxie and the side branch of Xuanjia. Knowing this, Xian Run lowered his head, as if he were a criminal who pleaded guilty to death. In fact, he didn't want anyone to see the smile on his lips.
Xian Run can understand things, Xuanxie naturally can understand. At this time he is very cooperative to ask, what kind of life is not like death? Yi Tian said slowly, do you know the way of death of the ancestor of Xiandazong? He practiced a kind of poisonous skill that Yi gave him. His life was greatly reduced and his death was approaching. The most poisonous way to die was to wait for death. Speaking of this, Yi Tian threw a jade slip in front of Xian Run. Xuanxie, do you have the courage to accept this kind of death? What dare you do? Xian Run is not afraid of death. Are you still afraid of waiting for death?
Xian Run then practices this method, and cultivates the poisonous skill of Ye's punishment. Xian Run picked up the jade slips from the ground and said with enthusiasm. After picking up the jade slips, Xian Run really practiced the spirit subduing skill according to the method recorded in the jade slips. All the people looked at Xian Run with astonishment, but they admired Xian Run's courage. We can all see the remnant after practicing this kind of spiritual skill. After all, the ancestor of Xiandazong is a ready-made example. If Xian Run doesn't practice this skill, he may be able to fight for a chance of survival, but once he practices it successfully, Shou Yuan will be reduced by at least half. This is a pure psychological torture. For some people who are determined to seek Tao, it is really even more cruel than death. To reduce the average Shou Yuan, not only is the road endless, countless years of hard work has become a dream, but also the dignity of the past will be lost. If you can, no one is willing to practice this kind of spiritualism. However, Xian Run was really cultivated. They watched quietly, until after a pillar of incense, Xian Run's breath suddenly changed, and suddenly became much weaker. It was only about the later stage of Jindan realm. Many of the monks in the scene, curious, released their own ideas, observed Xian Run's breath, and then all fell silent. After observation, it is found that there is no flaw in the weakening of Xian Run breath. It is not the use of the hidden cultivation method, but the breath in the elixir field is stiffly suppressed by some kind of reverse way of mana. The reverse way of mana should be unknowable to the friars themselves, and what hidden danger has been buried for the friars that cannot be determined for the time being, otherwise, it will not affect Shou Yuan. Not bad. Some courage. Yi Tian nodded and stepped to Xian Run's body. He patted his palm on Xian Run's body a few times, and was beaten in Xian Run's viscera one by one. Then he put his palm on his front heart, and mobilized those magic powers to weave a wonderful rune. This is the ban imposed by Yi Tian. If Yi Tian wants to, he can trigger this rune at any time and take Shenrun's life. Shenrun, Yi has already banned you, and the spirit subduing skill will continue to work.
In this way, it's not over. Yi will supervise you on behalf of Xuanxie.
With his words, Yi Tian moves his hand, and a magic weapon cave appears out of thin air, which immediately enlarges in front of everyone's eyes. You are ordered to be expelled from the spirit realm of Luo Tian, and you will be imprisoned for life, thinking of your faults behind closed doors.
Yi Tian pointed to the magic weapon cave and said,
Shenrun is willing to be punished.
Shenrun obediently and automatically enters the cave.
He knows that his life is finally saved. Old 14th, as a teacher, you are good at making opinions.
Do you have different opinions? Then Yi Tian looks at the dark crack. I dare not. He bowed down. Do you agree with Yi? Yi Tian nodded slightly and looked at the other monks of the Xian family. Yes.
They also bowed to Yi Tian. Seeing that Yi Tian had done such a good job, Xuanxie could not help admiring him. He had done such a good job that he had surrounded all the monks in Shenrun's family. There would be no more criticism about Shenrun's disposal. Because all the Xuanjia monks present agreed with master's practice. And those children of the Cloud family don't care. The affairs of the Xian family have nothing to do with them. But the children of the Xian family, including Xuanpu, Shenrun's son, who are still kneeling on the ground, have nothing to say at this time.
After all, Shenrun survived. It's the existence that even the mysterious cracks dare not provoke to deal with. Even if they still force each other with death, it has become an established fact to reduce Shouyuan. Xuanpu gets up, bows deeply to Yi Tian, and then greets many people and stands back to Xuanxie. Old 14, Old 15, as a teacher, I will not stay in Luo Tianlingyu. The next step is to leave here through the space channel. It's up to you. I hope you don't let me down. Yi Tian took a deep look at Xuanxie and Yunzhong and said. Xuanxie and Yunzhong know that Yi Tian's intention to leave is determined, and they can't keep it. After a farewell, Xuanxie takes out a white ball, erases the mark of divine thoughts on it, and gives it to Yi Tian. This Tian Luo net will be returned to the master. This is Shenyang stone, the 16 lay insects and those monsters. The disciples need some time to erase the mark of divine thoughts. Please wait a moment. With these words, Xuanxie gives the Shumi ring with Shenyang stone to Yi Tian. Well, you do it. Yi Tian nodded. Yunzhong and Shengang also came over and took out the 1,000-year-old Tamu Leichu sword and Hui Bao, and gave them back to Yi Tian. The 6 Hui arrows in Xuangang's hand were returned together, 3 of which were originally made, and the other 3 were made by Xiandazong himself. Yi Tian took them together. The cultivation of Shengang turning the top of the divine realm can only pull Hui's Bao to half open, and the mana is exhausted only twice. Yi Tian's current cultivation can't use the original Hui's arrow at all. Therefore, Yi Tian knows that he can only use the Hui's arrow configured by Xiandazong for quite a long time to come. In fact, the 3 arrows are extremely powerful. After returning the things to Yi Tian, Yunzhong also went to the side of the island to erase the spirit mark of those monsters. If not, it would take a long time for Yi Tian to erase the spirit mark of those monsters one by one when he can recognize the Lord. Xuanxie and Yunzhong are busy. The children of the Xian family and the Yin family came forward one after another and exchanged the field flags of the 8-pole array and the lock sky array to Yi Tian. Everyone came up and simply said goodbye to Yi Tian. It's still sad to say that this kind of scene. Although they spent a short time with Yi Tian, it became the most unforgettable time in their life. Because of Yi Tian's existence, their harvest during this period was also very huge. After taking back all the array flags, Yi Tian didn't mean anything. He gave some advice to the children of the Xians and Yuns. During this period, he also observed everyone. Some problems in his cultivation were clear in his mind. Although Yi Tian concealed some things, sometimes he even used some tricks, but he really wanted the Xians and Yuns to be stronger and stronger. Half a day later, Yunzhong and Xuanxie had wiped out the soul marks of all the spirit beasts, as well as the 16 lay insects. They put them into 3 spirit beast rings and gave them to Yi Tian. A group of people gathered together and immediately went back to the sea.
Compared with the previous warm scene, they wanted to be silent, and a feeling of separation was quietly staged.
Not long after entering the dark fog, Tian made a gesture.
We only saw a group of flying insects with 4 stars on them were taken into Shumi commandment by Tian, and then Tian went on as if nothing had happened.
Xuanxie and others looked at each other, and no one said anything. This kind of situation happened too much, and they were numb.
No one knows how many means and cards the mysterious Tian has.
He just knows that no matter what happens, Tian seems to be able to cope with it. Finally, Tian is on his way to the non-return island once occupied by the underworld.
In front of my eyes, except for countless bones scattered, I can't see any figure of Mingxiu.
Some part of the island, a dark hole appeared on the ground, the edge was deep, there was a faint dark air curling out from the inside, the hole was 3 or 4 feet round, like a death mouth that can swallow any life at any time. It was frightening. Tian stands at the edge of the cave. Tian's eyes shine through the cave. At the beginning, he doesn't see anything unusual.
But as the depth increases, Tian finds that there is a dense force of space in the deep of the cave.
That's right.
This is really a space passage. Tian does not cross the space channel once or twice, and he has many magic weapons, so he is not afraid of the space channel. As for the strength of the space passage, the monks of Xianming's sect can pass through, and naturally they have no problem.
It took Tian nearly half an hour to take his eyes back.
What he spent so much time looking at was exactly the field where Xuanmingzong set up the entrance of the space passage.
Yes, it's a one-way traffic field.
You can only go from here to Time and Spirit Field, but you can't come back from there.
Xuanmingzong's attainments on the field are extraordinary.
This field is arranged very skillfully. If the field is arranged with the force of space, if it is forcibly destroyed, it will cause the force of space, and it is likely to cause the collapse of the space channel to a certain extent.
With Tian's attainments in the field, the one-way passageway arranged by Xianming's sect could be broken, but Tian did not do so. This field can prevent the dark cultivation from the other side of time and spiritual field. It happens to be a kind of protection for Luo Tian's spiritual field. Only in this way can Xuanxie and Yunzhong have more development. After checking the space passage, Tian turns around slowly and looks at the people who see him off behind him. His eyes slide slowly on everyone's face.
Everyone here, no matter the monk of the Xian family or the monk of the Yun family, has been saved by Tian, and no doubt all of them have been instructed by Tian. When he was too young and his cultivation was still low, Tian was odd in any way.
At this time, people were reluctant to part with him.
Tian looked around and saw everyone's expression at this moment, so he couldn't help laughing. Everyone, don't be like a girl. This trip to Luo Tian's spiritual realm, the most gratifying thing for Yi is that there are no casualties.
But I have 3 things to say before I leave. Please teach me. Xuanxie and Yunzhong bow down at the same time.
Please teach me. The rest of the children of the Xians and Yuns were taught at the same time.
Tian took a look at the crowd.
This time, he didn't say anything polite, but slowly said, the first thing is that the 2 Xians are one with each other.
No matter what happens at any time, don't contradict each other because of anything. If there is anything, we can solve it through friendly negotiation. If we can't solve it, we'll wait for our teacher to deal with it for you, otherwise, you will lose yourself in the end.
Yes.
They agreed.
The second thing, Xian and Yun, we must keep watch and help each other with the Xingyi clan. I've already told you that you are all in charge of the Nuo family.
I believe you all know exactly what to do. Tian continued. I understand. This time, Xuanxie and Yunzhong agreed again, because it didn't involve other people, so they didn't say anything.
The third thing is to find the news of Sanqing Sanchilian for me.
Well, that's all. I'm going to be a teacher. After explaining these 3 things, Tian no longer talks nonsense. His body flashed and jumped into the dark underground cave under the gaze of everyone.
Congratulations to Master. Congratulations to Master Yi. At the edge of the cave, Xuanzhan, Yunzhong and the monks of Xuanjia and Yunjia all knelt down, and the sound of seeing them off came far into the underground cave. Tian hears these sounds, but he doesn't give any response. Instead, he moves his hand, takes out Dun Tiansuo, flies into it, opens the defense shield and flies deep into the ground. Soon, the pure grotto area has passed, and the surrounding space rolling force begins to act on Dun Tiansuo. The force of space is violent and twisted. If a monk is in a low level, he may turn into a piece of meat and disappear in the vast space. However, this Dun Tiansuo has a half-step speed to transform the divine realm, but it is stronger in defense, which can block the attack of the monks. Although the power of space is strong, it cannot produce any threat to the strong Dun Tiansuo. After a period of space shuttle, about half an hour later, Tian suddenly felt that the extremely obvious sense of weightlessness disappeared in a flash. Suddenly, he came out of the space channel and came to another place.
Through the transparent shield, Tian can see his current environment at a glance.
Yes, as you know in the Dark Crack Soul Search, this is the guard hall of the underworld for the space passage. The main hall is made of pure white bones.
It's snow white, but it looks extremely gloomy. There are no doors and windows in the hall. Except the white bone is bright, the rest of the place is dark. The floor of the hall is full of dark air, from which I come out. These are not the key points. The key point is that there are 4 skeletons in this white bone hall. Tian didn't know what the 4 skeletons were doing, but Tian saw that as soon as he got out of the fog and showed his figure in the hall, the 4 skeletons twisted their skeletons around Tian. There is no flame in the eye socket of 4 skeletons, which makes Tian feel relieved. Judging from the breath, Tian recognized that these 4 white bones and skeletons should all be the Hades level of Hades. Tian didn't care about this level of Hades, but after all, this is the territory of the Hades. Tian doesn't want to disturb too many Hades. His reaction speed is very fast. With a schwa, the shield of Dun Tiansuo is closed, and then the whole person disappears from the original place. This picture is quite strange. In the view of 4 white bones and skeletons, people disappear, but the shuttle-shaped magic weapon becomes smaller quickly, and then disappears out of thin air. After Tian put away Dun Tiansuo, the 5 element beads appeared in his hand. He quietly came to the wall of the white bone refining hall. When he slightly urged the 5 element beads, a round halo appeared in front of the hall. The white bone hall wall covered by the halo quickly became empty. Then Tian's body passed through the empty white bone wall and left the white bone hall. Although they didn't make any sound, the halo was very obvious. The 4 skeletons saw this situation, and their actions became very fast. One after another, they cast a mana on the wall of the white bone hall. Where the mana went, the wall turned into a dense black fog, and the last 4 skeletons came out of the black fog and left the white bone hall. Then, there was a roar outside, but in 3 or 5 breath time, countless white shadows were flying outside, and many white bones and skeletons were flying in different directions. At this time, Tian stood in front of a house made of white bones and looked at the scene in front of him in surprise. What he saw in his field of vision was still endless fog. Under the eye of the source sky, there were houses made of white bones everywhere. He didn't know how many white bones were needed to build so many white bones houses and where those white bones came from. Countless white bones and skeletons were flashing in all directions, but in a moment, he saw 4 or 5 white bones and skeletons with red flames in their eye sockets. It was obvious that these were the existence of the realm of Mingzun. Tian is the first time to see such a huge city with white bones. He is surprised. The city of bones is vast in all directions, but Tian doesn't dare to express his mind, for fear that he will be noticed by the high level of meditation here and cause trouble. For a moment, he doesn't know where to go out of the city. The information that Xuanxie and Yunzhong gave him was not so detailed. In fact, when they searched the souls of Xianming's sect disciples, they were not too detailed. In that case, wouldn't the soul searcher have to search for as many years as he has lived? That's impossible at all, so when Soho, a lot of memories are flipped, mainly to choose what you need to see. However, even if you don't know much about the situation here, Tian is not in a hurry. After all, he has come to Taimanlingyu, and then he will explore slowly. In front of the white bone house, Tian stayed for more than 10 minutes. Knowing that the white bones and skeletons around him were gradually scarce, Tian carefully chose a direction to escape. Suddenly, Tian stops when he is about 6 or 7 miles away.
A small group of about a dozen bones and skeletons of Mingxiu flew in the air 10 feet away from Tian. The leader was Mingzuan with red flame in his eye socket. As he was flying, he kept turning his skull and looking around, as if he could see things around with fire instead of eyes. The existence of Mingzun, in the case of not returning to the sea only one, Tian has been struggling to kill it. Tian is also surprised to see such a large number of monks in this city.
He will not despise any of them.
After all, it's too easy for a skeleton in this realm to kill a monk in Longmen. That is to say, he has all kinds of cards, and he needs the help of those people in Xuanxie to kill the Mingzun. Here, my mind is greatly limited, and I can't help being more careful. At the beginning, the demon still looked around normally, and didn't specially look there.
The rotation of the skull almost kept the same speed and frequency.
But when Tian was getting closer and closer, when the ghost skull with two groups of leaping flames turned to Tian's invisible position, it suddenly stopped.
Have you been found? Tian's heart is not from a tight. Maybe it's a coincidence.
In this case, Tian still does not move.
He just stands in the same place and quietly looks at the Buddha.
If Tian appears, it is a picture of a monk and a skeleton staring at each other.
That Mingzun just looked at Tian's direction, but there was no other reaction.
However, as the speed of the other side's flight gradually slowed down, the two groups of flames in the eye socket suddenly flashed quickly, and then with a bang, the flames quickly enlarged, as if suddenly burst out two groups of shiny fireworks. At the moment when the two flames in the eye socket of Mingxiu's skeleton suddenly enlarge, Tian only feels the original name of Linghua in Dantian tremble, as if there is some kind of reaction with the flame in Mingzuan's eyes.
It's broken.
Tian immediately knew that something was wrong, and a small moving sign appeared in his hand. But at this time, Mingzuan rushed at Tian's white shadow.
Seeing the other party move, Tian's eyes coagulate.
It's too late for him to activate the small moving symbol in his hand.
His heart moves.
Two pairs of heavenly wings appear in a flash behind him.
With a quick fan, Tian's body has appeared dozens of miles away.
As he was in the air, he urged the magic power in his hand to the small moving sign, and a gate of light appeared out of thin air. At the next moment, Tian stepped into the gate of light, and sent it out before the arrival of Mingzun, whose eyes were flashing two flames.
That was close.
When Tian murmurs to himself, he looks around, but he is surprised to find that he is still in the boundless city of bones, where there are dense and boundless air. Although Tian is invisible, it is obvious that the ripples of Ming Qi caused by the transmission of the small transfer rune have attracted the attention of many Baigu Mingxiu. What I saw in my eyes was that there were a lot of Mingzun with ghost fire in his eyes flying to this side.
I'm going to Tian saw 7 or 8 at a glance. At the moment, Tian didn't dare to neglect and fell down quickly, like a meteor. In such a reckless fall, the fluctuation of the dark fog is extremely obvious. Two of them seem to find something strange in the dark fog.
In the middle of rushing to the place where the ripples of the dark air are sent out, they suddenly change their direction and seem to chase Tian straight.
Even a Mingzun's speed is a little faster than that of Tian. Fortunately, Tian's position is not too high from the ground.
When the two Mingzuns are about to catch up with Tian has already reached the ground, and in his hand the 5 element beads rush straight into the ground.
It was quiet all around. Mingzuan disappeared and didn't keep up with himself.
At this time, Tian Kai wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and took a long breath. Then he continued to push the 5 element beads, went deep into the ground for a distance, and then flew horizontally. He felt that after hundreds of miles, Tian Kai carefully went up.
Next, the goal of meditation must be underground.
If you stay underground all the time, you will be the target of the other party. Now, it's impossible for Mingzuan to think that they can escape such a long distance in such a short time. The scope of their search should be within their normal speed range. So, it should be safe for the time being.
Up to now, Tian is a little annoyed.
He used to kill himself. As long as he stood still, no one would find his own existence. However, Mingxiu seems to have sensed the original spirit fire in his elixir and found his own existence. Tian doesn't know whether it's the personal power of the underworld monk or the common power of the whole underworld monk here.
If it's just the personal power of the underworld monk, it's better. As long as you can avoid the skeleton, everything will be easy to say. But if it's the magic power of the whole white bone underworld family, it's definitely a very troublesome thing.
The most important thing is that Tian finds that the city is so big that he can't find the edge.
He doesn't know where the end is. However, Xuanxie and Yunzhong didn't mention this when they gave their jade slips information. This is what makes Tian angry.
As he urged the 5 element beads to fly upward, he wanted to fly into the air in a very short time, so that all the underworld could not think of their present position, so as to relax their pursuit. In order to be on the safe side, he came from the sky, flying away and scanning the ground through the thick soil. On the ground, there are white bone houses everywhere, dense and endless.
Tian didn't rashly go up. In a large area right above, there were some deities.
No matter which kind of supernatural power was the personal supernatural power of the deity, or the supernatural power that the deity would use, Tian didn't want to meet these deities. It's too dangerous to have so many deities.
Tian gave up and continued to fly up out of the ground.
Instead, he flew away from the ground. To observe the situation on the ground carefully, Tian didn't urge the 5 element beads, but just used the normal stealth technique. Looking all the way, Tian just passed by those houses with white bones and skeletons. He once had the idea of hiding in a house with white bones, but this idea was rejected by himself as soon as he was born.
There seems to be something special about the underworld here.
Tian is not sure how much magic power the other party has. If he really hides in a white bone house, once the other party finds out that if he uses some magic power to trap himself in it or surround him, he really has no place to be polite. Although they have many cards, there are many things that can't be used now, such as Hui Bao, Tian Luonet, and the monsters themselves.
Even the invisible pearl you are using is limited by your own mana. You can't use it for a long time. Otherwise, the mana will be exhausted and other life-saving magic powers will not be able to be used. In this way, while observing the situation on the ground, while looking for a suitable place to take off, when he escaped 40 or 50 miles, what he saw in his eyes made him stop. Right above him, there is also a hall made of white bones, but one difference is that this hall is much larger than the white bone house we saw before, and even has some exquisite decorations inside. Those decorations even include calligraphy, painting, and some soft colors. The whole room presents a light pink color. This pink is from a pink crystal on a white bone table. But it's also easy to see that it's a hall made of a lot of thick bones. Other white bone houses are pure white, showing the true color of white bone. This is the first time Tian has seen the color of white bone houses.
But if it is just like this, Tian will not stop, at most with some curiosity and doubt, just look at it more. The basic reason why he stopped was because he saw that the pink white bone hall was not inhabited by a white bone skeleton, but a very beautiful Terran woman. The eyebrows and eyes are delicate, beautiful like spring mountain, eyes like autumn water.
A black and white gauze skirt just covers Ying's slender waist. The figure is exquisite and graceful, which makes Tian can't help looking at it more. Although this woman is extremely beautiful, her eyes are full of obvious sadness. She is sitting on a white chair and staring at the distance. She seems to have no focus and doesn't know what he is looking at. Just these are not enough. As the source sky wants to shine through, Tian sees that there is a field around the hall where the beautiful woman is located, which encircles the whole hall. This is a trapped array field, not a killing array field. The layout of the field is similar to the master of Xianming sect. Is this beautiful woman of human race captured by Xianming sect, and then set up this field to be trapped in this hall? In a hurry, Tianxia thought that this is the most direct and simple logic of thinking, but Tian knew that there might be other possibilities. Just as he was standing in the ground pondering, he saw that the beautiful woman suddenly stood up, grabbed a piece of bone on the table, and slowly touched her throat. Girl, don't commit suicide. You haven't reached the end of your life yet.
Seeing such a situation, Tian hastily spread out his soul to convey the sound, and sent the sound into the woman's ear from a distance. Immediately after that, he urged the 5 element beads in his hand, which had already escaped to the outside of the defense field. Yuan Tian's eyes were shining, and he made a series of gestures, but it took 7 or 8 breaths to weave a gap that only one person could pass through. Then he urged the 5 element beads in his hand again, and his figure flashed out of the thick white bones on the ground of His Highness the White Bone,
restored his original appearance, and appeared in front of the beautiful woman out of thin air. Seeing the sudden appearance of the Terran friar, the beautiful woman was shocked, and the boneware in her hand suddenly fell. Dao Yu, if you don't want to be discovered by the underworld, please keep quiet enough. Yi Tian gesture move, a magic roll up the bone, at the same time face a sink, said. This sudden action, he didn't even think about it carefully, was a subconscious action, because it was too dangerous, and then he might put himself in an extremely dangerous situation. What's more, he didn't know what identity the Terran nun was and whether she would expose herself because of this sudden action. Through his previous observation, he can only judge that the nun has been closed to the whole body cultivation, and is locked in the White Bone Hall with a field shield, which is definitely a Terran nun. As a human, Yi Tian's way of behavior, he is not willing to die. Now, when he said this, the nun covered her lips with her hands, and was stunned there, nodding her head immediately. This is not the time to elaborate. If doubt you can trust me, I'll take you away now. Yi Tian continued to say. The woman smell speech, again hard to nod, and to leaf day close to some. I will send you into the magic cave, and then I will take you away. When I send you into the cave, don't make any noise. Can I do that? Yi Tianxian is afraid of any mistakes and continues to tell him. The woman's accomplishments are closed, and she can't mobilize a trace of mana, which is almost the same as ordinary people. She can't use the divine voice. Hearing Yi Tian's words, she nods again and again. Well, I'm going to start. Yi Tian finally felt relieved. The next moment, he locked the woman in his mind. A spirit beast bag appeared in his hand, and then the beautiful woman disappeared from the original place. Yi Tian dares not delay at all. He uses his reclusive skill again to urge the 5-element beads in his hand. He passes through the white bone ground, and then enters the underground through the gap of the field. Once into the underground, Yi Tian is like a fish in water, more than 10 breath, has been flying away a very long distance. At this time, the underground is quiet, so quiet that it is dead. Yi Tian knows that the peace is only temporary and partial, and he doesn't know what the chaos is like outside his scope. From the fact that the woman was locked up in the main hall, Yi Tian can also infer that the Ming Xiu who imprisoned the woman must have a great identity in the Ming clan, especially the layout of the main hall, which is unique among the white bone houses he saw. This woman did not even ask her origin, but agreed to enter her own magic weapon cave. We can imagine the extent of this person's fear of the underworld, that is, she would rather fall into the hands of the human friars, no matter what treatment she suffered, than fall into the hands of the underworld. What's the matter? Yi Tian didn't have a chance to ask at that time, and now it's impossible to let her out to ask about the whole story. The most important thing now is to leave here. Yi Tian flies away and analyzes his present situation. All his cards are useless. In the stronghold of the underworld, he can't solve the problem by force. He can only escape from here with the help of hidden killing in 5-element beads. Yi Tian doesn't even dare to use it easily. If he's not lucky enough to send it to a more dangerous place, he might as well deal with Mingxiu steadily. After flying away for some distance, Yi Tian stops inputting mana into the 5-element bead, which consumes a lot of mana, so Yi Tian has to cherish the use of mana. Although he still has some liquid in his hand, there is a long way to go and there are too many places to use. Yi Tian, who changed to a normal Tuduan, became more cautious. He walked and stopped, constantly observing around with Yu Tian's eyes. Above the sky, there are white bones and skeletons flying around, shuttling back and forth, and the situation is very chaotic. We can't take off for the time being. Yi Tian had to continue to use Tuduan, and chose this direction to escape along a straight line. No matter how big the city is, as long as the direction is inconvenient, there will always be a time to go out. However, after less than 10 minutes, Yi Tian stopped again. Under the light of Yu Tian's eyes, he saw that there were white bones and skeletons in the distance, about dozens of them, searching everywhere. The speed of cultivating the earth in the dark is much slower than that of the friars, but the white bones and skeletons Yi Tian saw all have flame leaping in their eyes, which is obviously the realm of the dark worship. Ming Zun's earth hiding speed is much faster than other Ming practices, and it's hard for Yi Tian to spread his skills once he encounters them. After pondering for a few breaths, Yi Tian starts to run up slowly.
Finally, he chooses a dense area of white bone houses, jumps out of the soil and enters one of the houses. This house is almost the same as the other white bone houses Tian saw.
There is no superfluous things in it.
Besides a bone table and a bone bed, there are many shapeless white bones in it.
How terrible is this situation?
The white bone house he chose naturally had no hidden repair, so it was very quiet.
After entering the house, Tian didn't leave here in a hurry.
Instead, he hid in it and continued to use Yuan-Tianian to observe everywhere. Obviously, outside the room, Ming Xiu, who was flying up and down in the sky, didn't find his own existence. He was still searching everywhere in the sky, and so was the group of Ming Xiu he found underground.
He was still searching around aimlessly in the soil.
In this case, Tian immediately understood that in fact, Ming Xiu did not find any clues, but took the advantage of a large number of hands to carry out a carpet search.
So it's easy to say.
Tian, stealthy in a corner of the house, quietly continued to observe, waiting to find the opportunity to leave. At this time, his hidden killing skill has reached the limit. If he didn't know that he was here, I'm afraid that he would not be able to find his own existence by virtue of his inductive strength. In such a state of invisibility, time goes by bit. To Tian's surprise, after such a long time, not only the sky's meditation has not decreased, but also the underground's meditation has gradually increased. As far as the eye of heaven can see, the carpet-like investigation of Mingxiu becomes more and more intensive.
They are aimless, but they are all-pervasive. Maybe they already knew that they could be invisible.
When they were looking for themselves, they used bone artifacts to attack everywhere from time to time, as if they could find themselves in this way.
Up to now, Tian's heart has settled down.
He didn't see the ghost repair go to each white bone house to check. He guessed that the other party probably ignored this matter. While observing, Tian suddenly moves in his heart and looks in a certain direction. From the view of Yuan-Tian's eye, a skeleton patrolling in the sky suddenly falls from the sky and goes straight to the outside of the house where Tian is. Then he cast a magic power on the house, and the position immediately turned into dense dark qi. Then the white skeleton came into the room step by step from the dark qi position. Tian holds the 5-element bead in his hand and stares at the white skeleton coming in nervously.
He is ready to leave the house at any time.
Because he wasn't sure if the skeleton came in because he found himself. If you don't find yourself, there are no other skeletons in the nearby house.
The only one that has skeletons is the house where you hide.
However, if the other party found himself, there were no two leaping flames in the eye socket of the white skeleton, and his breath was not so strong.
With Tian's feeling, this meditation should be a Hades, which is equivalent to the golden elixir of the Terran friars. Moreover, from the other side, Tian is more inclined to this meditation.
He did not enter the white bone house because he found his own existence. That is, if the other party really found his own existence, then it would not be the only one who entered the white bone house. There would certainly be countless white bone monks coming from all directions and besieging himself in this difficult white bone house.
But in fact, it's not like this.
Tian carefully observed the surroundings, and the surrounding situation didn't change much because of the white bone meditation. Those who are outside are still in their own actions, those who are searching in the sky are still above the sky, and those who are deep underground are still launching aimless attacks everywhere underground.
None of this has changed. In addition, the monk who entered the room was also very relaxed. He didn't look at Tian's hiding place or look around. Instead, he went straight to the white bone bed and crawled to the bed, leaving the queen lying there quietly. Is this monk sleeping? Tian is a little surprised. It's the first time that he sees Mingxiu who likes to sleep. However, at the next moment, Tian denied his idea. After lying on the bed, Mingxiu didn't sleep motionlessly. Instead, after more than 10 breaths, a dark shadow floated out of Baigu, and then slowly floated to Yi and Baigu on the table. It's a kind of leg bone of unknown monster. It's thicker than the human race. It's pure white, crystal clear, and jade-like, and its surface is very smooth. It seems that it's been on the plate for a long time. The black shadow into the bones, for a long time did not come out, which makes Tian feel very surprised. For a moment, he became very curious, so he used Yuan-Tian's eyes to look at the crystal clear white bone.
The visual light passed through the white bone layer by layer, and Tian finally saw the inside. When seeing the situation inside, Tian can't help but feel very surprised. It turns out that this crystal clear white bone is actually a space bone, and it's not an ordinary space bone.
Can a bone that allows soul body to go in and out freely be an ordinary bone? This is not the place that surprised Tian the most. What shocked Tian the most is that he saw that there was no spiritual body in this space magic weapon. Instead, it was a human friar-like body with bones. The body is attached with bones. He is combing his hair with a bone comb and arranging his clothes solemnly. It turns out that this white bone is equivalent to a fitting room, or the magic weapon cave of a human monk. If you take the body with bones as the clothes of meditation, there is not much wrong with this comparison. Looking at the Mingxiu and the white bone magic weapon, Tian suddenly has a light in his heart, and seems to have caught the way to leave here. Anyway, this is the first great opportunity that Tian meets. He will never miss it.
Next, Tian begins to wait for a long time. After a long time, the figure of Mingxiu finally appears in the white bone room. Next, instead of caring about the skeleton, he went to a place in the white bone room without looking. With a magic power on it, the white bones still turned into dense qi. Then the self-cultivation figure of Ming, who was dressed in flesh and bones, left the white bone house from the spirit of Ming with Tian.
An invisible Terran monk came out alive, and the monk still didn't feel it.
With a gesture, a bone organ with white light appeared in his right hand, flying straight to the sky and away. Tian followed him closely, and generally observed the bone ware with white light in his hand. He saw that the top of the bone ware was thick and the bottom was thin. The thin end was just convenient to hold in his hand, but the thick end on the top was carved with some wonderful patterns. Tian couldn't recognize what it was for a moment, but it was very strange. What's more strange is that this monk of the underworld wears the flesh and bones, and his appearance is almost the same as that of a monk of the human race. If he doesn't feel the breath of the underworld on the body of the underworld carefully, it's hard to tell whether he is a monk of the human race or the flesh and bones of the underworld. But it was such a situation that the white bones flying around in the sky ignored him and let him go.
At most, they just glanced at the meditation and then went their own way.
After a while, Tian finally understood that the bone instrument held by the underworld monk should be a symbol of a certain status, which can prove that it is the flesh body bone, not the human friar, which is convenient for the underworld people to use the flesh body bone.
Sure enough, there are many things that you don't know about, such as mountains and different races.
With the Mingxiu and the flesh and bones leading the way, Tian, with his superb hidden killing skill, gradually gets away from the white bone house where he was hiding.
This meditation is equivalent to one's own talisman and mascot.
With him in the lead, no one will give too much attention. Tian had already realized when he saw this monk put on his body and bones. Since he broke away from the skeleton and used the body and bones, he probably wanted to leave the underworld area and go to the outside world, otherwise there was no need to do so. Whether it is like this or not, Tian will not give up this opportunity. In front of him, Ming Ziusi didn't feel that there was another person behind him.
He was flying in the dense fog.
When he was flying away, the rolling fog happened to cover up some trace of Tian's hiding in the fog.
Tian followed for half a day.
In front of the Mingxiu has never been able to find the existence of Tian. Later, there were fewer and fewer white bones and skeletons on patrol. In the end, we could not see the impact of what we did on the underworld region. And as Tian continues to move forward, there are fewer and fewer white bone houses in his sight. Finally, after nearly a day's flight, Tian sees the tall white bone wall in the distance. From the wall he saw, Tian deduced that the areas he flew in one day should be the cities with 4 walls. The wall is more than 10 feet high. You can see it clearly from a very far distance. And the front of the Mingxiu really went straight to the gate. As he got closer and closer to the city gate, he gradually saw the 2 big words of life with white bones.
Hades. What a domineering name, the capital of the underworld.
Leaf day secretly from abdomen Fei, then concentrate on to continue to follow a line. Like the House of Bones, the Gate of Hades is also made of bones. And they are extremely huge bones, which look particularly gloomy. At this time, the white bone gate was closed, and there were hundreds of watchmen by the gate, among whom there were 3 watchmen with red flames in their eyes. One of them, dressed in a white skeleton, stretched out his white arm bone and stopped the one in front of him. Tian also had to stop after this self-cultivation, but he was ready to run at any time. Because there are 2 red flames twinkling and jumping in the eye socket when we stopped the man who was dressed in flesh and bones. It turned out to be a Ming Zun that Tian was most afraid of. Tian tries his best to hold down the fire of Ben Ming's spirit in the elixir field, so as not to cause the other party's attention suddenly. He holds the 5 elements bead tightly, and is ready to cross the tall white bone gate by force at any time.
But not until the last moment, Tian was unwilling to break through. Through Yuantianian, Tian saw that there was still a boundless dark fog outside this big city named Mingdu. He didn't know how large a range it was. If Mingxiu was disturbed here, he would be faced with endless pursuit of Mingxiu. Fortunately, Mingzuan, who was guarding the city, just took care of the body and bones in front of him. As a result, he handed over the white bone keepsake with white light. After a careful look, a magic force hit the gate, and the tall and heavy white bone wall slowly opened. The man with the body and bones took over the white bone keepsake returned by the other party, didn't say a word, but ran out of the city. Tian doesn't care so much at this time. He stares at Mingzuan, who is guarding the city, and flies out of the gate of Baigu City without any rest. When he flies over the gate of the white bone city, he doesn't know whether it's true or an illusion. Tian even feels as if the guardian Mingzun looks at him intentionally or unintentionally. The string in Tian's heart is always tight. It seems that the other party has no follow-up reaction after taking a look. Tian is a little relieved, and continues to follow the body and bones in front of him to fly away from the city. It seems that the Mingzun didn't find himself. It should be a coincidence that he looked at himself. In fact, the other person's action of looking at himself was just 2 red flames in his eye socket beating towards him, while he was invisible, and the flame in the other person's eye socket didn't cause any reaction of the original spirit fire. It should have been a coincidence. Tian thought so in his heart, and continued to follow the body and bones in front of him. When we arrived outside the city of Hades, the number of Hades here was much less. They were no longer everywhere as they were in the city. Occasionally, we saw a few of them coming and going in a hurry, but no one stopped the Hades in front of us, and no one paid too much attention to them. Even Tian saw that there was a similar body covered with bones of Ming Xiu coming from the opposite side in a hurry, and then crossed and passed, and Ming Du rushed to the direction. Tian didn't wake up to any of the meditation he met in the middle of the journey. He continued to follow the meditation in front of him and fly away quickly. It's just that the realm of meditation is too low, which really suppresses Tian's speed. But Tian can't bear it. If it's not for this meditation who leads the way, I'm afraid Tian can't find the gate anywhere, let alone leave the capital safely. Beyond the capital of the underworld, there is a vast fog. Tian flies away with the body and bones for several hours. After that, he sees some white bone houses, which are built in the vast field in 708, and are not so dense. In Tian's mind, he suddenly realized that the city of Hades is equivalent to a metropolis, and here should be regarded as a suburb. There must be no higher realm of Hades living here. Sure enough, just like Tian's conjecture, after passing through the suburbs or villages and towns, there was no such thing as Mingjun. This underworld-level body bone has become the highest realm. This situation makes Tian feel at ease. Only if he doesn't meet a high level of meditation, then this is still his own world. However, in this case, Tian still did not act rashly alone, but followed the physical body with bones to continue to fly away. This time, it didn't take a long time to wait, and after about half an hour's flight, the physical body with bones was still in a swirling fog in the sky. The meditation stopped for a moment, and the body shot into the whirlpool. Tian followed him closely, almost with his front and back feet moving into the whirlpool. In the dark fog whirlpool, Tian felt some space rolling force, but this degree of space rolling force could not hurt Tian at all. Up to now, Tian is very glad to have made his own decision, and then he meets this physical body with bones, so he follows here all the way. This dark fog vortex is obviously a close space passage, just like the aura vortex when entering the Spirit Valley in the Square-Inch Spirit Realm.
After a short space shuttle, Tian and the man in front of him, one by one, go through the space passage and get into a dark fog. Tian took a look at the close space channel he had just passed. At this time, it seemed that the place he was in was still endless dark fog, but there were many big ups and downs on the terrain, which seemed to be a mountain covered by dark fog. Let leaf day hard a tight is, in this place there are more than a dozen monks around the space passage. There is a Buddha with red flame in his eye socket, some white bones and skeletons with lower level, and even 3 monks dressed as flesh and bones. As soon as his figure appeared, the bright white bone keepsake in his hand immediately threw it at the Mingzun who was stationed here. After that Mingzun took a look, the ghost fire in the eye socket flickered a few times, and then threw back the white bone keepsake. He took the white bone keepsake, and without saying a word, he flew to the top of the mist. The invisible Tian was like a shadow, as if it was the shadow of Fu Guming Xiu, who also flew to the top of the dark fog with him.
Tian didn't dare to release his mind at will. Although he only needed a little mind to observe the situation below, he still chose to look back at the meditation garrisoned in the short space passage with his naked eye. Those meditations didn't change at all. They just stood in the same place, mechanically staring at the mist whirlpool. Tian is completely relieved, so he also judges one thing. It is absolutely an accident to sense his inner spirit fire through the flame in the eye socket of the skeleton. It is not a magic power that all the Hades can have, but how the Hades can sense himself is something that Tian can't understand for a moment. But as long as you get out of here, that doesn't matter. Tianyuan's heavenly eye was shining through. He was observing the situation around him, and he continued to fly up with that Mingxiu. After a certain distance from Yuan Tian's eyes, Tian suddenly felt ecstatic. Through the dense fog, he saw that above the vast gray and black fog, there was a clear sky. There is no longer the boundless gray fog, but the real blue sky, white clouds on the blue sky, unknown birds flying, green hills and green trees, which is a human scene. Did you come out of the underworld like this? Tian suppresses the excitement in his heart and continues to fly up with the physical body attached to the bone. It seems that the body attached to the bone is familiar with the road here. He doesn't have the hope of Dongjiang, nor does he look left and right. He goes straight through the last piece of dark fog, places himself under the blue sky and white clouds, and then chooses a direction and flies away without any pause. Behind him, the invisible Tian flies to the sky and looks around. At this time, his vision is extremely wide and you can see everything around him. This is the top of a mountain. The place where you come out should be a vast abyss in the mountain. The dark fog not only covers that abyss, but also covers some nearby valleys. Such a scene seems to be in this mountain. The lower part is the dark fog, the dark realm, and the upper part is the human world. Tian carefully observed, firmly in mind to remember the terrain where he appeared, and then a little pause, took a look at the body and bones that had gone far away, quickly chasing the past. By this time, Tian has left the dark fog area, free and safe. In fact, I have to thank this physical body attached to the bones. If this person didn't lead the way, Tian would never come out so smoothly. Even if he understood the path of walking, it would bring a lot of trouble through the city gate and the space passage. But Tian's heart is very curious. What does such a bone-attached meditation do outside? Left and right, Tian also wants to leave here. What he wants to do can't be done just above the vast sea of fog. He simply follows the body and bones all the way. In the dark air, the monk looked relaxed and natural, but when he got to the boundary outside the dark fog, he was much more cautious. He kept looking around and stopping. Tian is not worried. The beautiful woman is in a bad condition in the spirit beast bag. Although her mana is sealed, she has no problem living for some time. About an hour later, Tian's scenery changed again. Originally, there was dark fog on the top, and the clear sky on the top gradually disappeared. The dark fog gradually disappeared, revealing the true features of the green mountains below. This is the complete appearance of the human world, a real too pretty spiritual realm. Soon, the hazy zone was left far behind. In front of him, he continued to fly away. Tian followed him all the way. Unexpectedly, he found that this time he was rarely seen. After a long time, he did not see any human friars.
Maybe this place is classified as a Jedi or a dangerous place in the realm of time and spirit.
There are too many spiritual practices in it. If the Terran friars don't have extremely important things, they won't come to trouble. The Terran friars don't come here, but what does this monk do outside the fog? Yi Tian is more curious.
About half a day later, the speed of the body attached to bones gradually slowed down, and finally fell into a wooded valley below. The invisible Yi Tian is suspended in the air, looking at the meditation sitting on a big stone.
It's still in the vast mountains.
It's the Xinming Mountain that Xuanxie and Yunzhong said in the message. Originally it was called Xinming Mountain, but later it was changed its name. This is a vast mountain with a radius of millions of miles.
Yi Tian always treats some foreign information with the attitude of verification. What he believes is that seeing is believing. A moment later, when he saw that Mingxiu was still sitting on the big stone with his knees crossed, Yi Tian slowly fell down, hidden behind a big tree, and continued to wait. He would never believe that this bone-attached Mingxiu had come here so hard just to sit on the big stone. In particular, the white bone keepsake in his hand is issued by the powerful high level of the underworld. Only in this way can he have a smooth journey, and no one dares to stop and cross-examine at will. So after about a cup of tea, Yi Tian, who was looking around with Yuan Tianian, suddenly looked far away. On the horizon, a small shadow gradually entered his vision, and quickly flew here. As the shadow gradually approached, it could be seen by the naked eye that it was a famous monk. Seeing that it was a Terran monk, Yi Tian's eyes narrowed gradually, and his eyes became chilly. But he didn't make any movement for the time being. He wanted to see what was going on.
Yi Tian not only found the famous friar, but also the monk who closed his eyes and meditated on the big stone.
He raised his head slightly and looked at the sky in the distance.
Then he made a gesture. The shining white bone token that had brought him all the way appeared in his hands, and then he put it on the big stone in front of him, then wait quietly. A moment later, the Terran friar had already arrived at the location of Mingxiu. He slowly stopped, looked down at Mingxiu, and then stepped on the flying sword.
Yi Tian had seen his face clearly before.
He seemed to be a middle-aged monk. He had a white face, a little thin cheek, some sparse short whiskers, a Taoist suit, and a scabbard on his back.
He was in the middle of the golden elixir realm. The man fell not far away from Mingxiu.
He took a look at the white bone keepsake beside him. Then he made a gesture, and an octagonal sign appeared, which seemed to be a token. He shook the token towards Mingxiu, then put it away, and then something appeared on his hand again, but it was a white jade slip.
The man didn't lean into the monk, but he just flicked his finger.
The jade slip in his hand flew slowly to the monk. As a result, the monk nodded to the monk and put away the jade slip. Then, there was another object in his hand, and he threw it at the friar. A flash of white light came to the friar's hand. In a twinkling of an eye, Yi Tian could see clearly that the white light was a polished bone slip, which was crystal clear, like a piece of jade. The utensils used by the friars of the human race to store information are called jade slips, but Mingxiu is different. They use bone slips. Yi Tian has had a lot of contact with Mingxiu and is not unfamiliar with this object. When he wanted to continue to look at it, he wanted to stop the friar from saying nothing after he took the bone slips. He just nodded to Mingxiu, and then he drove the flying sword away again. Yi Tian looks at Mingxiu on the big stone, and then at the monk who has left. He moves and uses his evasive skill to chase the monk. He didn't let go of the full speed, but he soon caught up with the monk in the golden elixir realm.
In order not to disturb the meditation, Yi Tian didn't start immediately.
Instead, he continued to fly 100 li. After that, Yi Tian suddenly got into trouble and quietly went around to the man and made a few points in front of each other's chest and above the elixir field.
A monk in the golden elixir realm is naturally captured by Yi Tian.
He is caught off guard. His big hole is controlled by Yi Tian. It seems that he has become an ordinary man.
He can't resist the flying sword and goes straight down. Yi Tian's body moves and catches up with him in a moment.
With one hand holding his belt, he falls into a dense forest in the valley below.
Who are you? I'm Chu Yutian of Tai sect, and Luo Shan is the master of Taisher sect. Is there any misunderstanding? Please come and see me.
Although the white-faced monk was restrained, he was clear-headed. He didn't see anyone, but he knew that he was captured by a powerful invisible monk. After a change of face, the man began to say,
Tian?
Yi Tian heard of the name, and in the jade slips that Xuanxie and Yunzhong gave him, there was information about the sect.
Tian is one of the 8 sects in time and spirit realm. It is very powerful. There are 4 ancestors in Yupu realm. Luoshan, the leader of Tian, is half a step into the cultivation of Yupu realm. He is also the number 1 person in time and spirit realm.
Listening to this man's report, Yi Tian didn't show up to meet him.
He didn't pay attention to his words.
Instead, he put his finger between his chest and abdomen again, making him unable to make any more sound. Then he pressed his palm on his head and began to search for his soul. About 10 minutes later, Yi Tian has fully grasped the recent situation of this person. In order to save time, he has a lot of memories, but he didn't look through them. After getting the information he wants to know, Yi Tian takes down the man's Shumi commandment, quickly rubs off his mental imprint, and then marks his mental imprint, searching for the items inside. After counting the breath, Yi Tian gestured, and the bone slip that this man just got from the Mingxiu appeared in his hand, and then pasted it on his forehead.
The information inside is not long. Yi Tian reads it quickly and takes down the bone slips.
Yi Tian looks at this person coldly and begins to ponder.
This man didn't lie. He was really a disciple of Tai's sect. He was also a disciple of Luoshan sect. This time, he was sent by Luoshan to exchange information with the underworld. This person sent some secrets about the other 7 sects in the spirit realm of Timon to Mingxiu, involving some extremely private things, which is equivalent to selling all the 7 sects of the human race. But the bone slips that Mingxiu gave him were an order given by Mingzun to Tian. The order says that the Tsangming Holy Land is about to open. When the disciples of each sect enter the Tsangming Holy Land, let Tian continue to provide information about the disciples they enter, and let Tian be ready to listen to the instructions of the underworld at any time. This kind of information makes Yi Tian hate this person and the whole Xuaniamen. Therefore, Yi Tian finally understood why the underworld wanted to send Xuanmingzong to the Luotian spiritual realm, because Xuanmingzong could not move in the Timon spiritual realm, and the underworld had found another force to replace Xuanmingzong, that is Tian. The original Xianming sect belongs to the second-class forces in the realm of Timon spirit. No matter what aspect, it can't be compared with Tai's sect. It's reasonable for the underworld to abandon it. However, as the top power of the human race, Tian colluded with the underworld, trying to use the power of the famous clan not only to attack the strength of the other 7 sects, but also to achieve the goal of annexing the 7 sects, so as to compete with the underworld and the barbarians in the spirit realm of Timon. Not only do we not say that the means are extremely despicable, and we have completely lost the bottom line. Originally, Yi Tian didn't know what the so-called Tsangming Holy Land was, but by searching for the soul of Chu Yutian, he got some news and had a general understanding of this matter. It turns out that the Holy Land of Tsangming is a mysterious space connecting the immortal mausoleum of the underworld. In the space, there is a kind of heaven material and earth treasure called Pluto flower, and there are a lot of soul elements in it. These 2 things are not only of great use to the underworld, but also of great benefit to the cultivation of human friars. Yi Tian didn't get any specific information from soul searching, but for the Terran, he knew that it was a kind of treasure that had a strong effect on enhancing the power of divine thoughts. Another kind of thing called Hunyuan is used with the flower of Hades. It can use the flower of Hades to enhance the power of divine thoughts, and the effect is more powerful. But the mysterious space of Tsangming's holy place can't be entered at ordinary times. Only when the barrier of Holy Land is extremely weak, can we enter it by some means? Because those 2 treasures are of great use to the Terran friars and the underworld, all forces will not miss this great opportunity. In particular, Tsangming Holy Land is only opened once every 1,000 years. It is only 3 months away from this opening. The opportunity is extremely rare. Many big forces have been preparing to open it since Tsangming Holy Land was closed last time. It can be seen that they attach great importance to Tsangming Holy Land. As for the more specific information, Yi Tian did not get more specific information from soul searching, but one point aroused Yi Tian's strong interest. There is such a message in Chu Youqing's memory.
After the opening of Tsangming Holy Land, there is a very mysterious power. If there are friars above the human Yuan infant realm, or demons above the underworld realm, or demons above the 5th level, it is likely to wake up that mysterious power. The monks of all nationalities in the high realm will be wiped out without exception.
This is the bleeding experience of many millennia. Is there such a magic thing?
Under Yi Tian's curiosity, he began to search the soul of Chu Tian again. In the previous soul search, he just wanted to know what happened between this Terran monk and the underworld, because the underworld monk also took a jade slip sent by Chu Tian.
If the jade slip is extremely important, Yi Tian still wants to go to the underworld to get it back.
However, after knowing some secrets about the 7 sects, the bottom cards of each sect, and some information about the elite disciples, Yi Tian changed his mind.
Jade slips and bone slips are important, but they are only a means of transmitting information.
Even if Yi Tian takes back the jade slip, or takes away the jade slip, as long as either side of the underworld in Taeman doesn't receive the news from the other side, and the two sides don't have a successful connection, they will certainly contact with each other about the connection and continue to pass on each other's news. Therefore, the source of information is that jade slips and bone slips have nothing to do with each other, which is not the way to break off contact with each other. Since no matter what you do, you can't stop the collusion between the two sides, so Yi Tian gives up this idea. If you destroy the information transmission between the two sides this time, you will make both the underworld and Taeman alert. Maybe the next strategy will be to reserve more backers or arrange more powerful to implement because of the leakage of information, which is not good for the 7 sects. In this way, good intentions become a bad thing, but they make a hole in others. It took more than an hour for Yi Tian to search the soul of Chu again. Then Yi Tian pondered for a moment, put the bone slips back into the Shumi commandment of Chu Tian, and wiped off his soul memory mark. Then he put a few points on Chu Tian's body to restore his cultivation.
All this is done by Yi Tian under the invisible loading.
After knowing that Chu Tian's mana has been restored and his action ability has been restored, he doesn't see who started it. Now the other party didn't kill himself, and he also returned Zumishio. Chu Tian felt relieved. At least his life was saved, but he was a little worried. It seemed that the bone slips had been read by the invisible man, and his memory had been searched. If Master knew this, he didn't know how to punish himself. He looked around, but still did not find the existence of the invisible man. He could not help guessing that maybe the man had left, so he looked at the Shumi commandment on his finger and rebranded it with divine thoughts.
As soon as Shunjin had just finished, Chu Tian could not help exclaiming.
He felt that his body had been slapped several times, and then he lost his ability to move. Then he lost consciousness when he was dark. After the invisible Yi Tian controls this person's action ability for the second time, he presses his palm on his head again and exerts his mana to erase this person's memory completely. Then, Yi Tian made a gesture, and a transparent 4-step shadowless snake was called out by him from the spirit beast ring. Under the control of his mind, he bit Chu Tian's leg hard, and then took the shadowless snake back to Shumi ring again. The venom of the shadowless snake is so intense that it is extremely difficult for a monk in the golden elixir realm to resist the spread of toxin with his magic power. What's more, the cultivation of Chu Tian has been completely closed by Yi Tian, and the speed of toxin invasion can be imagined. Yi Tian's eye shines through, carefully observing the invasion of the toxin in this person's body, combined with the other person's body reaction. After counting the breath, he moves again, unties all the prohibitions on Chu Tian's body. At this time, Chu Tian had been invaded by the toxin of the shadowless snake and fell into a coma. His face turned black gradually and his breath became weaker and weaker. It seemed that he could not support it for several hours. Yi Tian glanced around, didn't find any flaws, and then drifted back not far away. He came to a tree hundreds of feet away and began to meditate. Bit by bit, about 2 hours later, 2 dark shadows appeared in the sky. They fled so fast, then circled in the nearby air and landed beside Chu Tian. Seeing the dark face of Chu Tian, the 2 monks' faces became very ugly. One of them, a tall black-bearded friar, gestured to move Chu Tian's zumaji to his hand. After checking, he found that Chu Tian's soul reading mark was still there, so he began to wipe out the soul reading mark on it. Then he recognized the Lord himself. After checking, he took out the bone slips that Yi Tian had checked. After reading, his face was slightly better.
How's it going? While he was dealing with Sumi Jia, another short monk began to examine Chu Yu Tian's injury.
Hearing the question from Friar Blackbeard, the short friar shook his head and said, "Elder martial brother, Yu Tian can't save him. He was bitten by a poisonous snake.
This snake is extremely poisonous."
Before the short monk finished speaking, the black-bearded monk's face changed.
A palm had been pressed on Chu Yotian's head, and he was searching for his soul while giving him mana to maintain his vitality. A moment later, the Blackbeard monk's palm left Chu Yotian. "Elder martial brother, what's the situation?" The short friar glanced at Chu Yotian's body and asked. The black-bearded friar was Luo Shan, the gate of Tai sect.
Hearing the words, he pondered, "There is a blank in the memory of heaven, which coincides with the alarm when the soul card of Benming was kept in the sect. It should be that his memory of the period when he was attacked by poisonous snakes and monsters and led to coma is blank, which is very normal. Moreover, his Shumi commandment also has the mark of soul, which is definitely not done by other monks. It's a pity that Yu Tiantian's money is good, but you have bad luck and died early. When you go back, you should warn your disciples to guard against this kind of poisonous snake and monster." With these words, Luo Shan made a gesture.
A wisp of flame flew out of his finger and fell on Chu Yotian's body.
His body burned up in a flash and turned into a raging fire. Soon, it turned into a pool of ashes. Then they got up in the sky, left here, and fled to the distance. After they left for more than half an hour, Yi Tiankai quietly left here.
Until hundreds of miles away from here, Yi Tiankai stopped and began to ponder. It seems that the time and spiritual realm is not peaceful. Various forces are complicated and constantly fighting. Leaving the space passage of time and spirit realm, he only got some vague information. He just said that the space passage leading to the Holy Spirit realm was in a secret place. Yi Tian didn't get prepared for the specific secret place. Of course, this kind of secret information can only be obtained through local friars, so we have to deal with various forces. I don't know how long it will take, and the Holy Land of Tsangming is about to start. The flowers of Hades and the spirit Yuan in it are very useful to me. What I need most now is the enhancement of my spirit. If I give up such a great opportunity, it seems to be a sin. Yi Tian thought it over and over again, and he had made a decision in his heart. Yi Tian, who has made a decision in his heart, looks around and steals to a hidden valley. He uses the technique of earth hiding to sneak into the ground. After thousands of feet underground, he stops slowly. Yi Tian did not spend his magic power to activate the 5 element beads, but adopted the normal way of done. Thousands of feet underground, Yi Tian took out the big seal magic weapon again, created a huge underground space, and then cleaned up, took out the magic weapon cave for Shenrun to live in. The magic cave was enlarged into a normal size in the space he created, and then Yi Tian stepped in. "Master."
Seeing Yi Tian coming in and meditating, Shenrun suddenly opens his eyes and stands up to bow to Yi Tian. Seeing Shenrun's respectful appearance, Yi Tian suddenly waved his hand with a smile. "Shenrun, we have left the Luotian spiritual realm and entered the Taiman spiritual realm. There is no Xuanjia here anymore. You are no longer bound by the Xuanjia's clan rules. In order to save your life, I performed a play for Xuanxie. Now that you have reached the realm of time and spirit, you don't need to call it that anymore. Moreover, since you are no longer in danger of your life, you can leave and start your new life in the realm of time and spirit." "No, Master, are you going to drive Shenrun away?" Shenrun said that he would be a slave to his master all his life. "That's true. He will never go back. Tingyao Yetian said so." At this time, Shenrun, whose cultivation had been suppressed to the golden elixir realm, immediately stood up with his face changed and vowed. Yi Tian waved his hand to Shenrun with a smile and said, "Shenrun, sit down and talk. Yi has said that the agreement between you and me is only an expedient measure." "It can't be true, Master." Shenrun called in a hurry, and continued to speak. Yi Tian waved his hand again. "Don't talk, listen to Yi. It's true that you can reduce Shou Yuan by half, but you don't have to worry. There are many ways to increase Shou Yuan in the world. But the ancestor of Xiandazong, Yunhong himself, has nearly reached the end of his life, and he is in the situation of 5 failures of heaven and man. In this case, he expends a lot of mana, so he naturally seeks his own death.
As for you, the situation is different from him.
You don't have the situation of heaven and man's 5 decline, and there are many original Shoyuan. Even if you cut it by half, you still have the hope to impact Yupu realm. In that way, Shoyuan will multiply back, and Yomo will lift the ban on you and give you a free body. After all, in the spirit realm of Luo Tian, they all fought against the underworld and the immortal sect together.
Ye can still talk about this. Do you understand what I mean?
Xianrun kneels down in front of Yi Tian with a plop and knocks his head on the ground.
Then he doesn't lift his head. Master, Xianrun won't go away. Xianrun will be loyal to his master.
If the master still doesn't trust Xianrun, Xianrun can make a blood vow, and let him put down a few more prohibitions. In a word, Xianrun will serve his master as a slave all his life.
Yi Tian's eyes flashed and said, Xianrun, isn't it good for you to be free? What do you want to be with Yi?
Hearing Yi Tian's words, Xianrun kneeling on the ground slowly raised his head, pondered for a moment and said, Master, since the master asked, I'll tell you the truth. I know nothing can hide from the master. First of all, I would like to make a statement that the old slave has absolutely no malice, but only a little selfishness. Although the old slave's realm is not very high, he still reads countless people.
When I look at my master, I'm not a thing in the pool.
In the future, the cultivation will definitely surpass that of other Terran monks.
Maybe they will have the chance to stand on the peak since ancient times. There is a saying that beating a dog depends on the owner.
If you recognize the owner, no one will dare to bully Xianrun anymore in the future.
Isn't that much better than going out and wandering? Besides selfishness, the old slave is also self-motivated.
As a monk, he has been practicing hard for many years in order to reach a higher level. Although the old slave had practiced the art of spiritualism, and his longevity was reduced by half, his master might not be able to solve it. Even if we can't solve it now, we may not be able to solve it in the future. Moreover, listening to the master's explanation of the way of cultivation on the island of no return, the old slave was so enlightened that he benefited a lot. I don't have the fortune to be accepted as a disciple by my master, but if I follow my master and listen to the lessons sooner or later, I will certainly benefit a lot. In this way, my disciples also want to have more chances to enter Yupu realm and become countless respected old monsters in Yupu realm. There is also a little selfish of the old slave. Because my son and other members of the Xian family are still in the spirit realm of Luotian, and the leader of the Xian family is the master's disciple, who obeys the master's orders. If they need the convenience of the Xuanjia lineage in the future, although the old slave is only the master's slave, the Xuanjia lineage may not consider this origin. If the master is kind enough to say a word and a half for the old slave will be very grateful. These are all the thoughts of the old slave, and the reasons why he insisted on staying with his master. The old slave had no reservation, and all confessed to his master. For the sake of these selfishness, the old slave would do his best to serve his master, even if he died. Because the old slave was not alone, he had sons and clansmen. If the old slave really died, he would earn money by dying many days later. What's more, if the old slave died for his master, the master would not treat his sons and clansmen kindly. In that case, even if the old slave died, it's a proper death. Xianrun finished sentence by sentence, his voice was slow and low. After that, he put his head on the ground, waiting for Yi Tian's final decision. The reason why Yi Tian wants to drive Xianrun away is not his original intention, but the method of playing hard to get. It is impossible for Yi Tian to trust Xianrun completely. For such a person who can betray Xianrun's family, if Yi Tian trusts him unconditionally, he is a fool. But Yi Tian really needs a person who can practice spiritualism and follow him, and only Xianrun is qualified for this person. It was by such a coincidence that such a big play was staged in Buguihai. This time, it's also a trial to Xianrun, and it's also a kind of persecution to him. Dig out all his thoughts, that is, he can't have two hearts. Xianrun said his selfish, but Yi Tian was relieved. This is human nature. If human nature is put out, things will be much easier. Xianrun said those words. Tian did not immediately nod or shake his head, but pondered for a moment, then slowly said, "In this case, Xianrun, you stay, but you will not give you any promise. Everything depends on your performance. If you perform well enough, for you, as well as for your son Xuanpu, there may be a big fortune. In this way, I thank my master for accepting me." With these words, Xianrun bowed down again. But Tian shook his head. "Xianrun, the key point of loyalty is heart, not the etiquette on the surface. In the future, this kind of etiquette will not be needed.
You can see ye naturally. Don't move, just grab the ground with your head." "Yes, master." Xianrun's face brightened, and he stood up happily. He took out a chair from Zumaji and sent it to Tian. He was quite aware of being a servant.
Tian nodded with a smile, sat down and said, "First, I'll tell you about the current situation.
Now we are in time and Lingyu. Soon something will happen. If necessary, I need you to do it. It's my duty to serve my master to the death." Xianrun immediately said. Tian nodded and said, "Your strength alone is not enough.
There are great friars in Yupu realm in this wild spiritual realm, and the strength of meditation can't be compared with that in the sea. Therefore, these spirit beasts should be branded as soon as possible, and they should be recognized as masters to meet the needs of the times." With these words, Tian takes out 3 spirit beast rings and gives them to Xianrun. Xianrun took over the 3 spirit beast rings.
He was very excited.
Once, only Xuanxie and Yunzhong, Tian's 2 disciples, could touch these monsters. The rest of them, Tian, didn't let them touch them.
It's very simple. Although Tian never explained the reason, the main problem was trust.
Now that Tian has given himself the spirit beast ring, he can see his trust in himself. Unexpectedly, although he has practiced spiritualism, he has become the core figure in the host camp. It's a great joy for him and his son.
"I'll do it as soon as possible."
Xianrun looked at Tian, stood up and said in a hurry,
"You do it here first, I'll go out for a while." With that, Tian's figure disappeared from the original place.
Tian looks for a big stone to sit down. Then he ponders a little. His gesture moves and his mind goes into the spirit beast bag. The next moment, the beautiful nun he sent in appeared in front of her. The beautiful woman appeared in the valley. She saw a look of surprise on Tian's face, which clearly showed her vigilance.
She immediately returned to normal.
She gave him a smile, spread her slightly frowned eyebrows, and began to look at the surrounding environment.
"Dao Yu, this is no longer the area of the underworld. It should be safe for the time being. I don't know why you fell into the hands of the underworld."
When the woman finished observing the surrounding environment and set her eyes on Tian again, Tian asked with a smile.
"Ah.
Well, I was captured by a Terran friar. I was there when I woke up. I don't know why I was captured, and I don't know the rest of the details. However, I am very grateful to you for your help," said the beautiful woman, biting her lip.
Tian squints his eyes slightly and looks at the girl. All her expressions are in Tian's eyes.
From then on, with a little hesitation on the girl's face, and her expression of desire to talk and stop, Tian knows that what the beautiful woman said is not true, and there should be a lot of moisture. He took the risk to save the girl from the famous race.
The most fundamental reason is that she is a human race, so he didn't sit by and ignore her. However, since the girl is not far away, Tian is not interested in asking more questions. Dao Yu has been banned.
If you want to untie the ban, you need to find out what kind of prohibition it is, and then you can use the corresponding method to remove it.
If you need it, I may have a try. If you don't need it, you can leave by yourself. Tian looked at the woman again, not very enthusiastically. Since Dao Yu saved me from the underworld, how can you save people to the end?
The beautiful woman thought about it and said with a smile.
Tian eyebrows a pick to ask away, "Do you mean to want me to help you lift ban?"
The woman shook her head and said, "Although I've been banned, I feel that Dao Yu hasn't gathered the elixir yet. Some of the prohibitions are very powerful. If you try to lift them, it may bring serious danger to those who have lifted them. Dao Yu has saved the life of the little girl.
How can I put Dao Yu in danger? If it's convenient for you, thank you for sending me back to Duanjian Villa. Broken Sword Villa? I don't know how far it is from this time?
Yi Tian heard the woman say such a word, his face could not help showing the meaning of the color of meditation, and then asked.
The beautiful woman glanced at Yi Tian and said, Duanjian Villa is not well known. It's reasonable that Dao Yu don't know it. Duanjian Villa is in Futu Mountain. It's only 10,000 li away from here. If you want to come here, Dao Yu will leave here. If you can send me back, I will do it. Thank you very much. Well, then, do you want to go back to the magic cave or take you with me?
After all, the cultivation of Taoist friends is now forbidden, so they can't use their magic power.
Yi Tian asked. Xuanxie and Yunzhong did have records about Duanjian Mountain and the jade slips they gave him, but the information inside was limited.
They only said that Duanjian Mountain Villa was powerful and belonged to the Duan family of Taimanlingyu.
There was an old ancestor of Yupu. There is no news about Sangming Holy Land in the jade slips.
Whether Yi Tian wants to know about the space passage or that Sangming Holy Land, he should deal with the human friars.
It's okay to send this girl to Duanjian Villa, by the way.
He can deal with any danger by his own means. Therefore, when the beautiful woman asked Yi Tian to escort her back to Duanjian Villa, Yi Tian agreed.
Hearing Yi Tian's question, Lu Yamei frowned slightly. Dao Yu's cave, I'm not used to it. Dao Yu should take me back. If Dao Yu don't think it's convenient for you to fly, you can walk to Black Cloud City and rent an animal car. Don't worry, all the expenses will be borne by the little girl.
Yi Tian heard that it was not because other people were afraid that they would not find it convenient enough, but because the woman felt inconvenient. Instead, she said it tactfully. I have to say that this woman is really troublesome and has a lot of attention. However, her words are to remind themselves.
It's easy to understand. Literally, it's a car pulled by a monster. You don't need to rent it. There are also cars on your side. They are all ready-made.
You got them from Wei Wuyan, the son of Marquis Jing'an.
Yi Tian doesn't want to expose Dun Tiansuo when it's not necessary. If this treasure causes others to covet it and cause some trouble, it's really unnecessary.
Now that this woman has mentioned the beast car, it's easy for him to guess that the beast car should be a very common means of transportation in Taimanlingyu.
It won't attract much attention to use this kind of thing.
After paying attention, Yi Tian said, I don't need to rent the car.
I have it on my old servant. But I'm not here for the time being.
Wait here.
Would it take a long time, I venture to ask? The woman looked at Yi Tian suspiciously, then looked at the dense valley environment around, and hesitated to ask. Yi Tian laughed, you don't have to worry.
If I have any bad intentions towards you, I don't have to make such a bad excuse. It will take about 2 days for the old slave to return, so you can be patient.
If you feel bored, we can have a chat. 2 days is really a long time. Since the old slave of Dao Yu can only come back in 2 days, can you ask Dao Yu to send me to Black Cloud City, which is only 1,000 miles away, and will arrive soon? Then when the old slave of Dao Yu comes back, you can go to the Broken Sword Villa to look for me, and you will certainly honor the gift promised to Dao Yu. The beautiful woman thought about it and said. Well, since you want to go to Black Cloud City, I'll give you a present. As for the gift of thanks, it's free. Yi Tian said with indifference. He took out a top magic weapon flying sword and suspended it in front of him. Yi Tian didn't care about this woman's being so careful, but she was surprised that she didn't ask him how he came out of the underworld, which was a bit unreasonable. Seeing the flying sword appeared, the woman looked around, then came to a tree and broke 2 branches slightly thinner than her wrists. Then she asked Yi Tian to land the flying sword on the ground. When she went up, she motioned Yi Tian to stand in front of the tree and handed forward the branch that had just been broken. Yi Tian couldn't help laughing, but he didn't refuse. He stood in the front of the flying sword, holding the 2 ends of the stick in his 2 hands. The woman held the other 2 ends, so he used this way for security protection. Attention, take off. After preparation, Yi Tian reminds us that he is driving the flying sword to the direction of the Black Cloud City that the woman points to. On the way, they didn't say a word,
and even omitted the process of politely asking each other's names. Until about half an hour later, a towering city appeared in front of them, and the woman said, "Dao, the former convenience is Black Cloud City.
Just put me outside the city. Thank you very much this time." "You're welcome."
Yi Tian calmly replied that he had already given up the idea of going to Duanjian Villa to inquire about the news. In front of the gate, Yi Tian put her down according to the woman's request.
"Thank you, Dao. Next I can do it myself. Remember to go to Duanjian Villa, and I will make good on my promise."
The beautiful woman said a hug to Yi Tian. Yi Tian nodded slightly, returned a gift, then went straight to the Dark Cloud City. This woman is obviously very alert to herself. She would rather rent an animal car than wait for her to send him back.
In this case, Yi Tian doesn't want to pay attention to it anymore.
It's a chance meeting, and she has done her utmost. Now that he has arrived at the first city of Taimanlingyu, Yi Tian naturally wants to go in and have a look.
Along the wide streets of the city, Yi Tian walks all the way.
He doesn't know what level of city this Black Cloud City is in the Taiman spirit realm, but he thinks it is still very big. The city gate is towering and the streets are wide. There are a lot of monks in it, and all kinds of shops selling cultivation resources can be seen everywhere. All of a sudden, he saw a plaque not far away with the words Langya Animal Chariot.
He could not help but be curious and walked over. "Do you want to rent a beast car?"
Just at the door, a young friar with a sales face came to meet him.
"His cultivation is also the cultivation of Longmen realm." Yi Tianlu nodded and said casually, "It may be used in a few days. Come and have a look at the market first. Please come inside. Langya is one of the best in the city. Taoist friends have a good eye." The young friar didn't wait for Yi Tian because he didn't plan to rent an animal car today.
He introduced him and flattered Yi Tian to welcome him in.
Although it's an animal car rental shop, Yi Tian didn't see any cars or monsters in it.
Instead, he was invited to a room by the young man and made a pot of tea.
Yi Tian naturally won't drink foreign tea. He slightly expressed his gratitude and asked, "I don't know what kind of animal car you have, what's the specific price?"
"Hee, Langya Animal Car Shop has all the animal cars in other shops.
The price is definitely more reasonable than other animal car shops. I don't know what kind of car you want to rent?"
The young friar did not sit down, but said with a smile.
Yi Tian frowned.
Just now, he seemed to have answered all his words, but he didn't have anything useful. It's no wonder that if he was too smart, he would know the general situation. Unfortunately, he didn't know much about it.
Seeing Yi Tian frowning, the young monk was stunned. He didn't know what he said was wrong.
After thinking about it, he took out a jade slip from Shumi Ring and handed it to Yi Tian. "Dao, this is the price list. Please have a look."
What Yi Tian wants to know is this. He nods slightly and takes it over.
He sticks it on his forehead and looks at it carefully.
"I see the price is very detailed. The second-class animal car, the daily rent of 10 pieces of fairy jade, with the coachman 12 pieces of fairy jade, the third-order animal car, the daily rent, and 20 pieces of jade with the driver, 25 pieces of jade, the fourth-stage animal card costs 50 pieces of fairy jade per day and the driver 60 pieces of fairy jade per day. There is also a deposit price without a coachman in it."
In short, the quantity is not poor. Even the deposit of the second-order beast car needs 500 pieces of fairy jade.
After reading it, Yi Tian gave the jade slip back to the young friar and asked, "Dao, how come there are no 5 or 6 level animal carts in it?"
Listening to Yi Tian's question, the young monk was stunned and immediately threw a fist at Yi Tian. It turns out that Dao wants to rent 5 or 6 level cars.
"I'm really sorry.
We don't have such a car rental in our shop. Let alone the Black Cloud City, there's no such car rental in the whole spiritual realm." Yi Tian knew that the young man didn't look like a liar, and he seemed to have some dissatisfaction in his tone, so he waved his hand with a smile and said, "Don't blame me, Taoist friend. I've always lived in seclusion, and I've never rented or sold a car, so I don't know the market at all. So I came to see this situation in advance. Why don't I rent a car at level 5 or 6, and there's no description of the monster in the car sales?" With these words, Yi Tian took out a fairy jade and put it on the table. this fairy jade is just a little compensation for occupying Daoyu's time.
Haha, I see.
I said that you had been practicing in the late period of Longmen realm since you were young. You turned out to be a bitter monk. It's really disrespectful that youth haha smile, immediately robe sleeve a jilt, the fairy jade on the table immediately disappeared.
Yes, please help me out.
Yi Tian replied with a smile. The young friar said, well, the Taoist friends can certainly understand some of the situations, but they just don't think about it.
You should know that 5-level monsters need Yuan Jing monks to control, and which Yuan Jing monks don't have their own cars? Do you still use leasing? As for the master of Washinjing, the same is true.
I've never seen a master of Washinjing rent and sell cars. But the friars of low level want to rent the animal chariot of level 5 or 6, and they can't control it.
There is no master of Yuanyingjing or Washinjing to be a coachman. The truth is so simple.
For the sake of Taoist friends' kindness, I'd like to remind you that the monks in Timon's spiritual realm have a bad heart, and there are many people with evil thoughts.
Taoist friends have been practicing hard all the time and are not familiar with the dangers in the world.
If they don't be careful everywhere, they will suffer a lot.
Yi Tian suddenly nodded. It turns out that this is the case. The 5-level car sales actually need Yuan Jing friars to control it.
Originally, he thought that there would be some magical means for this kind of animal chariot, which could be pulled by high-level monsters and controlled by ordinary monks.
Now it seems that he really thinks too much about it. The chariot is just renting resources, not having other magical means. That's right. And just now the Taoist friend asked about the chariot-pulling monster.
It's really a layman, because all the chariots rented by the chariot shops are pulled by 2-winged demon horses. This kind of monster is good at flying, relatively easy to catch, fast and stable.
It's the first choice.
As for the cars that Daoyu may see pulled by other monsters, they are all private cars. Private cars rarely use biplane monsters, but use other more powerful monsters to distinguish private cars from rental cars.
Maybe it's not pleasant to say. Generally, high-level monks with status don't sell cars by renting them.
We only do business with low-level Taoist friends. The young friar said without hesitation, perhaps because he was in a good mood because he was rewarded with a piece of fairy jade.
Is there any place to sell the high-level double-winged demon mark? Yi Tian continues to ask. There is a monster shop, but the price is not cheap,
said the young friar. In this way, thank you very much. When you need to use it, please trouble Daoyu again.
Yi Tian stands up and leaves.
He has at least gained some knowledge points in this trip, which is not in vain.
It's easy to say that the price of this bank is the most reasonable. Welcome to visit us again. The young friar politely sent Yi Tian out of the car shop. To the door of the car shop, see a scene on the street. Yi Tian is a frown. The nun who separated from him at the gate of the city was stopped by 2 young people. She was pestering him with a playful face, while the woman was angry and yelling. Go away quickly. I tell you that my aunt is from Duanjian Villa. If you don't want to die, go away quickly. Aha, it's also Duanjian Mountain Villa. It's a common nanny in Duanjian Mountain Villa. Tut tut. Yes, it's a nanny. That guy is not small ha. If you're from Duanjian Mountain Villa, you'll be a good one. Good boy, let's go with you. You are not afraid of humiliation if you flirt here. One of the youths laughed and said that this man had only the cultivation of Guanhai realm, while the other youth around him was the cultivation of Longmen realm. Yes? It doesn't matter to be shameful to act recklessly here. Aren't you afraid of losing your life? Yi Tian saw this situation and walked over. Don't mind your own business, Daoyu. That man is from the Hu family in the Dark Cloud City. You can't stir him up. Seeing that Yi Tian was so impulsive, the young friar said in a hurry. But Yi Tian doesn't care about those at all. He goes up to the beautiful woman and says, you can leave by yourself. These 2 people won't pester you anymore. Thank you, Daoyu. I'm here to rent an animal car. The woman said thanks to Yi Tian and hurried to the Langya beast cart. Don't rent her, or you'll tear down your car shop. The young man of Seaview called to the young friar of the car shop, then looked at Yi Tian and said to the friar of Longmen Border, Ahu, do him, teach him how to be a man. This guy's words really work. The young man in Longmen didn't think about whether he could have done Yi Tian. Anyway, he raised his hand and punched Yi Tian in the head. The fist carries mana. Even if the opponent is only in the middle of the Longmen realm, a big stone can be hit. Pa!
There was a clear sound. Before the monk of Longmen realm hit Yi Tian's head, Yi Tian slapped him in the face and pulled him away. The monk of Longmen realm flew up like a wooden stake and hit the young man of Guanhai realm. With the force of the collision, the young man of Guanhai realm staggered a few steps, spat out a big mouthful of blood and fell to the ground.
Go away, Dao Yu, you're in a big trouble.
Seeing this scene, the young man of Langya Animal Car Shop rushed back to the car shop.
Yi Tian did not leave immediately, but looked at the beautiful woman and asked, what's your plan? Continue to rent a car? I'm just a tiger in the sun. Dao Yu, you'd better take me away.
The woman snorted coldly, and then her tone turned sharply, pleading to Yi Tian.
All right. Yi Tian nodded slightly and released the top magic weapon flying sword.
Then a magic power entangled the woman and put it on the flying sword. A light of the sword flew up and shot out of the city. You have no accomplishments now. Even a beggar can bully you. If you look so good, don't show off. During the flight, Yi Tian said. How did Dao Yu come out of the underworld? Unexpectedly, the woman didn't pay attention to Yi Tian's stubble, but unexpectedly asked. Yi Tian didn't wait to say anything, but he suddenly looked back and said, there seems to be some influence in the boy's family. Unexpectedly, 2 monks from Jindan Kingdom came after him.
It seems that the Hu family is used to bullying people.
There are more and more self-righteous families.
In front of Duanjian Villa, the fart is not. Can Dao Yu fly over them?
The beautiful woman said with a cold hum.
Do you mean to ask if I can run beyond them?
They are just 2 elixirs.
Why do you want to run?
Just screw in, Yi Tian said with disapproval. At the same time, his speed also slowed down.
They are the golden elixir realm.
The beautiful woman's voice was stagnant, and she seemed very speechless. During the conversation, 2 fast Dunguang have caught up with Yi Tian. The 2 monks in Jindan realm are all middle-term practitioners.
They can't tell their age by their appearance, but their appearance seems to be about middle age.
One has black beard, and the other has white complexion.
Report the history, I will spare you not to die. 2 people dodge light to stop in front of 2 people of Yi Tian. The friar with black beard glanced at the top magic weapon flying sword at the foot of Yi Tian, and said with surprise in his eyes. Really?
Watch it. Yi Tian does not mind brow a pick, took out a small book from the Shumi ring, open to show each other.
Yi Tian, Department of Chinese, Nanhai University.
Among them, the friar with black beard looked at the little Ben and then looked at his companion. The friar shook his head doubtfully. No matter what their reaction, Yi Tian put away the student's testimony that he had been collecting and said, the origin has been reported.
Can we go now? With these words, Yi Tian urges the flying sword at his feet.
The flying sword suddenly draws a curve in the same place and flies away in another direction.
Bold, let you go? The friar with black beard yelled and chased Yi Tian with another man. It's just 2 monks in the golden elixir realm. Yi Tian doesn't care. He wants to see how arrogant the Hu family in the so-called Black Cloud City is. His speed is not fast, even the speed of the top magic weapon Feijin did not rush to the extreme. In this case, he was stopped by his opponent again between 3 and 5 breath. No matter who you are, do you want to leave after you hurt the Hu family? Said the black-bearded friar, who began to speak, grimly. Yi Tian took a cold look at the man and asked, your Hu family first molested my partner, and then acted first. I just gave him a hand. You Hu family are useless. Did you beat the little one to get old? Is this plot too bloody?
The suckling baby calls himself old man in front of me.
I'll see how I punish you. Friar Blackbeard said angrily. With a gesture, a magic power like iron lock swept towards Yi Tian. It seemed that he wanted to catch Yi Tian.
Seeing that the other party is so unreasonable, Tian's heart of compassion gradually recedes. From this matter, he has been able to see how rude Hu Jiaping really is. The other party just wants to catch people. I'm afraid it's because he's a stranger and doesn't know his own details, so he doesn't dare to kill easily. If you are a weak friar who knows the roots and the bottom of the city, I'm afraid you will be even worse than yourself. You can guess some clues from the words of the young friar of Langya Animal Car Shop.
What's a disaster? Is it true that the Hu family's beating is a disaster?
He felt a sense of punishment in his heart, and his hands were a bit heavier.
He waved a black ball made of magic power and smashed it against each other's iron lock.
They collided with each other fiercely. With a bang, the iron smashed unexpectedly.
The black ball went off and hit Friar Blackbeard's chest.
Monk Blackbeard had no idea that a little monk in Longmen was so powerful. He had no time to dodge. He was hit by a strong force and spewed blood out of his mouth. The white-faced friar rushed to catch his companion with his arm outstretched and examined the injury. When he found that Friar Heishu had broken a few ribs, his face could not help showing a look of horror.
How's it going? Can I just leave?
See that Friar see to oneself of vision peep out the color of fright, leaf daylight smile way.
Lao Gio calls people.
Blackbeard friar sent a pill to the mouth, glaring at Yi Tian, said to the white-faced friar nearby.
Slow down, don't wait.
Yi Tian's voice spoke indifferently, then turned to fly sword and flew away.
Dao Yu is really powerful.
I didn't expect to hurt the monk in Jindan realm with one move. It's really impressive. On the flying sword, the beautiful nun stood in front of Yi Tian and said back.
Dao Yu, I think you should be more concerned about the two monks calling.
The white-faced one has inspired a message.
Aren't you worried at all? He, Dao Yu is a very smart person.
You don't worry at all, so I don't have to worry. But the woman said with a smile.
So you trust me? But not before? Yi Tian asked quietly. Maybe there are some misunderstandings.
Dao Yu can find a way to escape from the pursuit of the senior friars of the Hu family, and then let me explain it in detail. The beautiful woman said with a chuckle. This is the first time Yi Tian saw him laugh.
Chasing?
Yi Tian drives the flying sword, with a strange expression on his face.
Dao Yu don't think that the monks of the Hu family should just forget it?
The woman asked in some confusion.
Yi Tian laughed, of course not. I think it's their luck that Yi doesn't chase them. You're the first one I've ever seen to blow cowhide so fresh and refined. The woman giggled.
Yi Tian also said with a smile, it's not a boast. The other party will come and give the Taoist friends to them. Then I'll go to Duanjian Villa and report to see if you can chase down the bullshit Hu family.
You dare.
That woman is not normal, angry way, she knows Yi Tian is joking, but also make a pair of believe true expression.
Whether I dare or not, the Hu family is really here.
Yi Tian turns to see one eye, sees a dark shadow in the sky to fly toward this side quickly.
Soon, the man has arrived behind Yi Tian. Yi Tian puts his flying sword at his feet and looks at the comer.
He was a strong man with a murderous look on his face. He felt his breath. He should have just entered Yuanying realm, but the breath of Yuanying realm was not very stable. Yi Tian looks at this person indifferently, and doesn't look at him in the least. If the person is a higher level monk, Yi Tian may consider using the 8-pole array field or locking the sky array field, or calling Shenrun over. But now it seems that he doesn't have to be so troublesome. He can deal with it by himself.
If you hurt the Hu family, do you want to leave? The strong man in the early Yuan dynasty didn't rush to do it.
Instead, he looked coldly at the beautiful nun in front of Yi Tian, looked at Yi Tian behind him, and then cheered rudely.
If you are looking for a place for the Hu family, stop talking nonsense and do it. Yi Tian is too lazy to talk with this man.
His mind has already locked on the 16 flying swords in Shumi ring. The strong man looked at Yi Tian carefully, and found that this indifferent young man was not a low-level monk who suppressed the cultivation realm of high-level monks. His bone age was indeed in his 20s. His ability to hurt the monk in Jindan realm with the cultivation of Longmen realm only showed that the other side had special cultivation skills and powerful magic power. The Hu family has a certain influence in Black Cloud City, but it's not worth mentioning when you look at the whole time and spirit realm. It's the nature of the Hu family to bully others. If they can't afford to offend them, they don't dare to offend them easily. Yi Tian and the beautiful woman are not ordinary friars. Although they look reckless, the strong man doesn't dare to do it easily when he hears Yi Tian's full of confidence. After looking at them, he can't do it easily, he asked, I'd better report my family background first. If the Hu family has some friendship with your elders, I won't be too hard for you. If you don't say it, don't blame Hu for being impolite. Is that what the Hu family says? Is it all like this? Yi Tian said with a sneer, how can you not see each other's mind? If you don't appreciate it, don't blame me for being rude. Don't think that if you can hurt the friars in the Golden Elixir realm, you don't pay attention to the elders in the Yuan Infant realm. Maybe you don't know the difference between the Golden Elixir realm and the Yuan Infant realm? Let alone the gap between Longmen and Yuanying. That stout friar cold voice shouts away, the words of Leaf Day let him quite some don't come down. We are from Duanjian Mountain Villa. We have already told you the origin of the Hu family. You have been pestering me again and again. I have every reason to think that the Hu family in Black Cloud City is the enemy of Duanjian Mountain Villa. Haven't waited for the Leaf Day to answer a word, the beautiful woman in front of the Leaf Day body is cold say. Hearing this, the strong man's eyes wandered a few times and asked, since you say you are from Duanjian Villa, what's the certificate? You can't just say who it is, can you? I also said that we are from Tai sect. Do you believe it when you say so? Well, you Hu family are all birds of a feather. The little one also said that you are Teiman. You also said that you are Teiman. Do you want to follow Teiman so much? Although the woman's accomplishments had been closed, she did not show weakness in her words. The strong man laughed and said, you can't believe it. The Hu family is really a peripheral force of Teiman, or a member of Teiman. The reason why I have repeatedly asked you about your origins is that there are many forces who have friendship with the Hu family. The Hu family doesn't want to flood the Dragon King temple. That's all. It's not who the Hu family is afraid of. Are you really from Teiman? After hearing the word Teiman, Yi Tian's heart moves. Since he has been in Taiman Lingyu, he has not dealt with many forces, so there are only a few in front of him, but this Teiman is one of them. Naturally, Yi Tian has a bad impression of this sect. Who is the Hu family? They don't want to follow the 8 sects at will, do they? The strong man snorted coldly. Yi Tian nodded and said with a smile, in this way, I have a bottom in my heart. She told you now that she was from Duanjian Villa. She wanted a certificate. No. What are you going to do? Nothing else, now I'm going to take people. With these words, the strong man pinched the formula, and a magic hand suddenly appeared and grabbed the woman. Shameless. Yi Tian suddenly burst to drink, 16 small flying swords appeared in a flash, and the cold light formed a mysterious formation to meet the big hand of the magic power. Boom! With a sound, 16 small flying swords have formed a small Shumi sword array. Under the impact of the two, there is a loud sound. The big hand made by the magic power is smashed by the Xiaomission sword array in an instant, and then the light of the sword flickers. A few cold points appear and disappear in the air, and the strong man is trapped in the sword array unconsciously. Feeling the horror and murderous opportunity from the sword array, the strong man's face changed and looked at Yi Tian outside the sword array. Who are you? Exactly? The people of Duanjian Villa can't arrange the sword array. It doesn't matter who you are. What's important is that you're going to be a dead man. Yi Tian smiles coldly, and then the mana urges 16 swords. The 6 sides closed space made by Xiaomission sword array slowly closes. Boom. Boom. Although he felt that the sword array was not so easy to deal with, the strong man was not ready to die. A big axe appeared in his hand, and he began to chop and chop, making a continuous roar. However, no matter how he chopped, the 6-side sword array of Xiaomission sword array was not affected at all.
Moreover, the sword array closed instantly under the urging of Yi Tian's mana.
A blood fog suddenly broke out. In the strong man's frightened cry, the man had been cut into countless pieces by the sword array. Yi Tian put away 16 swords with no expression, and at his feet he urged the magic weapon Feijian to fly away. Since the Hu family is a member of Tian, and Tian is in the same boat with the underworld, Yi Tian's men will not keep their hands. Originally, he was very unhappy with what the Hu family had done, but now he has another reason to die.
Dao Yu, what a powerful sword array. I didn't expect that Dao Yu's skill was so profound. Are you really a monk in Longmen realm?
During the flight, the beautiful woman recovered from the shock and turned to ask.
It's just a monk in Yuanyingjing. This is the weakest Yuanyingjing that I have ever died in my hands.
Yi Tian said that he didn't answer the question, but he didn't want to say more in his own realm.
Is the Taoist friend not attached to the spiritual cultivation of the human friars? The woman asked in silence for a moment.
Yi Tian said with a dumb smile, "It turns out that the reason why Dao Yu treat me so coldly is because you misunderstood me as Mingxiu? To tell you the truth, I had this idea. At the beginning, I felt that if it wasn't for the meditation, it was mostly the Terran friars who had collusion with the meditation, because the ulterior purpose was close to me." Speaking of this time, the woman stares at Yi Tian's face, and is still observing what she says.
Yi Tian shook his head in wry smile. I'm just like a bad guy? That's not true. Dao Yu doesn't act like a bad person. For example, stand up and help the weak. For example, he was not afraid of the Hu family, but he was calm.
Moreover, Dao Yu didn't even look at the storage rings of the monks in Yuanyingjing, which is enough to show that Dao Yu is not a greedy person.
That's why I dare to ask, the nun said with a smile.
Later, I also understood that if Dao Yu wanted to have any intention towards me or Duanjian Villa, he would not let me go easily. Since you let me go, it means that you have no evil intention towards me for the time being.
I know this very well in my heart.
The reason why I doubt Dao Yu is that Dao Yu can easily escape from the underworld.
It's really beyond my expectation. It's impossible. If it's not a member of the underworld, how can the underworld let go?
What's more, I'm in the hall made of white bones.
How do you know and rush to help me? If it's not a plan made in advance, how can you show up in front of me? When the nun said that, Yi Tian was also stunned. It's reasonable. No wonder people have to doubt it.
It turns out that in other people's eyes, he is either a monk with flesh and bones, or a human monk who has collusion with him.
Naturally, the other side will give up.
Thinking about this, Yi Tian nodded and said, I can see you in the White Bone Hall because I have super sensitive ability, and I can escape from the underworld because I have some skills.
Dao Yu may not have completely eliminated his doubts, so he used this method to try.
I can tell you responsibly that everything is not what you think. The woman also nodded silently. In fact, it's not my fault.
Since Dao Yu is a monk, he doesn't even know about Duanjian Villa. It's really suspicious.
Moreover, you told me before that your old servant has a beast car, but then you went to the car rental shop.
How can I not be more suspicious?
Even, I doubt that you will join hands with the Hu family and make a play for me. I didn't deny this idea until you killed the monk of Yuanyingjing in the Hu family. After all, no matter what plot, it's not worth sacrificing a monk of Yuanyingjing, and that person really doesn't know you. Looking at the back of the woman in front of him, Yi Tian Yu said, it's said that women's mind is much.
I didn't expect that you didn't realize anything. You actually have so many psychological activities.
I don't think I have to contact with you so as not to be imagined as someone again.
In fact, I'm not to blame. It's because my lessons are too profound. Why do you think I am in the underworld?
It's all because I trust others so much that I was plotted.
The person who plotted against me is actually my good sister for many years. It's really chilling.
I can't imagine that she has a relationship with the underworld. The woman was in a state of depression. Instead, he looked back at Yi Tian and said, Dao Yu, if you don't mind, please send me back to Duanjian Villa.
The leader of Duanjian Villa is my father, and I will be very grateful to you. It's no problem to deliver it, but if you're grateful, you don't need it.
As you can see, I don't want the Shumi precepts of Yuanyingjing friars.
What else can I see? Yi Tian said indifferently. No matter, I'll depend on you anyway. If you want to get paid or not, just do it to the end.
That beautiful woman listens to Yi Tian to say so, begin to act coquettishly unexpectedly.
Yi Tian was dumbfounded and asked, "This is not good. You don't even tell me your name. I don't ask for someone like this, do you? My name is Duan Feishui. My father Duan Jian is the leader of Duanjian Villa. Taoist friends have never heard of Duanjian Villa. It's a strange thing. It's not that Duanjian Villa is so powerful, but that ordinary friars will hear about it."
With these words, the woman began to look back at Yi Tian blatantly. Yi Tian's face is a bit embarrassed, because the distance between them is too close, maybe as long as a break, two people can bump into each other.
He deliberately looked at the sky to hide his embarrassment and said, "I will tell you my identity in the future, but it's true that I don't mean any harm to Dao Yu. Needless to say, it's easy to save your life. Originally, I need to come out of the underworld. If you kill the Hu family, they will not give up. When you get to Duanjian Villa, my father will support you. Even if you are 10 or 8, the Hu family will not dare to fight you again." The woman said with a smile. Yi Tianqin made a calculation, nodded slightly and looked back. He couldn't help feeling strange that there was no follow-up action in the Hu family, and no one came after him. Is the highest level monk of the Hu family the strong man in the early Yuan dynasty? Yi Tian can't help guessing.
Before long, Yi Tian and the woman returned to the valley.
Just a moment.
Put Duan Feishui into the valley, Yi Tian says, and uses the technique of earth hiding to enter the underground. However, in 10 minutes, Yi Tian comes out from the underground again and stands in front of Duan Feishui. Shenrun is still working tirelessly to mark the spirit beast's soul, but it can't be over yet.
Yi Tian puts away the magic weapon cave and takes it with him. "Let's go.
Send you back to Duanjian Villa."
"Dao, you really don't need me to lift the ban for you?" Duan Feishui asked everything, but Yi Tian didn't explain anything. As soon as they met, Yi Tian asked, "Don't worry, Feishui has never been touched by a man, so please forgive me." Duan Feishui hesitated and said,
"Well, I'll speed up the flight so that the Hu family won't catch up with me."
"Stand firm." Yi Tian nodded to show his understanding. He stood on the flying sword and told him. Duan Feishui is silent.
This time, she stands behind Yi Tian. When Yi Tian quickly controls the flying sword to take off, and her speed is constantly improving, this woman holds Yi Tian's belt after hesitation. Unconsciously, he blushed as if he was drunk. Yi Tian's speed is faster and faster, which is far faster than that of the monks and longmen.
Duan Feishui is surprised to see this situation.
But she gave some directions to Yi Tian occasionally, but she didn't say anything more. Along the way, to Yi Tian's surprise, the Hu family didn't move anymore.
Everything was calm and no one appeared. In addition to the sky, occasionally you can see the kind of horse demon with wings flying by with a beautiful car, and you never see a friar with a royal sword. Taoist friend Duan, I don't know one thing. Why do those friars like to ride in animal chariots instead of flying with swords? Yi Tian feels very strange and finally asks. He, Dao Yu always ask common sense questions. Duan Feishui breathed out and said, "It's very dangerous for low-level friars to go out here."
The law of the jungle happens from time to time, but the car shop can provide protection for low-level friars. Although those car dealers seem to be small in scale, they all have strong support behind them.
For example, the Langya animal car shop that Dao Yu went into before is one of the 8 sects of Dikuan sect. And each different car-selling shop has its own logo.
If someone dares to act against the car-selling operators, it is to provoke the forces behind the car-selling shop, which will inevitably lead to extremely serious consequences.
However, some private animal carts also dare not be underestimated. Most people have to weigh their hands if they want to start.
If they want to covet the belongings of some low-level friars, they often lose more than gain.
So, I was going to rent an animal car because it was safe enough. I didn't expect to meet the 2 bastards of the Hu family.
It's the most dangerous way for us to fight against the sword.
It's easy to meet some villains who want to get rich.
Yi Tian Wenyan nodded. It seems that for the convenience of travel, we should also take the beast car.
Duan Feishue said, the animal car of the animal car shop is relatively safe.
No matter how strong the background is, no matter who guarantees that there will be no accident, it's only time to track down.
The murderer can't escape severe punishment.
But the victims are the most unfortunate, because no amount of severe punishment can save their lives.
Does Duanjian Villa have its own animal cart? Yi Tian nodded and asked. Naturally, although Duanjian Villa can't compare with the 8 sects, it also has a place, and its strength can't be underestimated.
When it comes to Broken Sword Villa, Duan Feishue said with pride.
So, when Duan Daoyu returns to Duanjian Villa will take revenge on the person who betrayed you? Yi Tian asked. Duan Feishue said, that's my father's business, but I think it should be postponed temporarily. Maybe my father has more urgent things to do. Yi Tian said no more and continued to fly in the direction of Duanjian Villa.
When they were more than 2,000 miles away from Duanjian Villa, they had already come to a big mountain. Suddenly, 2 figures flew up from the ground and stopped in front of Yi Tian's flying sword.
This should be within the scope of Duanjian Villa, right?
Looking at the 2 men in front of him, Yi Tian asks with some doubts. When they arrived here, the people of Duanjian Villa should have noticed that they were more likely to meet the next section of flying snow, but this was not the case. On the contrary, 2 monks who seemed to have a bad intention stopped the way. These 2 people are not from Duanjian Villa. If they dare to fight here, it's possible that something happened to Duanjian Villa. Seeing the 2 men, Duan Feishue said with a change of face, if there is no accident in Duanjian Villa, these 2 people will never dare to do evil here.
If anything happens, these 2 people seem to be coming for you. Yi Tian looks at the 2 people in front with bright eyes.
Seeing that the focus of each other's eyes is not himself, but Duan Feishue behind him, he can't help but say in surprise. Can Daoyu escape from these 2 people, or I'm afraid Daoyu will be affected by Duanjian Villa?
Duan Feishue turned pale in an instant, and then said slowly. There's no problem in escaping. I'll leave at once.
When Yi Tian talks, he doesn't care to expose Dun Tiansuo. With a gesture, he takes out the treasure.
Dun Tiansuo enlarges in a moment.
Before the 2 Yuanying friars arrive, Yi Tian takes Duan Feishue to Dun Tiansuo, randomly puts away the top magic weapon, flying sword, and Dun Tiansuo shoots away in the distance. Seeing this, the friar of Yuanying kingdom on both sides quickly drove the flying sword to catch up with him. However, he could not catch up with Dun Tiansuo, who had reached the half-step divine realm. In a moment, he lost the sight of Yi Tian and his 2 men, and they stopped angrily.
Duan Feishue feels the speed of flight and looks at Yi Tian.
His face is covered with frost. Finally, she couldn't help it anymore and asked, Daoyu, since you have such a treasure, why do you want me to share the same flying sword with you for a long journey?
Do you want to get close to me and take advantage of me? Yi Tian was stunned when he asked so plainly and unreasonable.
His face sank and he pointed to Dun Tiansuo. Taoist friend Duan, please see, this magic weapon is driven by the best fairy jade, which is extremely hard to find.
It costs less. I never use it easily unless I'm in danger of death. Now in order to save Daoyu, I just use it. On the contrary, it's wrong for me? Well, I blame Daoyu wrong. I'm sorry. Duan Feishue looks at Yi Tian's fingers. As expected, she sees the top-quality Xianyu and apologizes with a red face. Duan Feishue was fortunate enough to have seen it once, so she knew the appearance of the best fairy jade. When she glanced at it, she found that 8 pieces of the best fairy jade were installed on the Dun Tiansuo. She could not help but wonder. Although this magic weapon is good, it's really something to burn money. Ordinary monks can't afford to use it. Well, trust is the most important thing for each other. It's not easy to build trust. The boat of friendship can't be turned upside down. Yi Tian's face softened and he said with a smile. The explanation just now is just a cover-up. In fact, the best Xianyu is not a problem for him. After all, he has tens of thousands of pieces on his body. He just doesn't want to easily expose Dun Tiansuo, but he can't tell Duan Feishue about it. I believe in Yi Daoyu's character, so I asked you to escort me back. Duan Feishue said awkwardly, and then changed the topic. Can Daoyu observe what happened in Duanjian Villa through his mind?
Yi Tianwang said to Duanjian Villa, as I have seen before, nothing serious happened in Duanjian Villa and no fighting happened. It's just that a group of people are visiting Duanjian Mountain Villa. They should be discussing with the people of Duanjian Mountain Villa.
Don't worry. If there are forces of Yupu monks, any force will be afraid if they want to fight. Otherwise, the counterattack of Yupu monks will definitely make any force feel headache.
A great monk in Yupu can destroy the foundation of any sect.
This is absolutely not alarmist. So it is. I don't know who it is. What's the matter with Duanjian Villa? Duan Feishue's face eased a little, but still said nervously. Well, I don't know. Yi Tian shakes his head. He just goes to Duanjian Villa and discovers the situations mentioned before.
In order not to cause unnecessary trouble, he doesn't observe it for a long time and naturally doesn't see it so carefully.
If there is any trouble in Duanjian Villa, it has nothing to do with him. Yi Tian is not stupid enough to take care of the family affairs of the great friar in Yupu realm with the cultivation of Longmen realm.
Besides, Yi Tian doesn't have any friendship with Duan Feishue, so he can't use all his cards.
Duan Feishue only thinks that Yi Tian is also incompetent, so she doesn't talk anymore. She just looks at the direction of Duanjian Villa with a worried look on her face. Taoist friend Duan, let's change into flying sword. After a moment, Yi Tian said, it's like going for a ride now. They are sitting in a circle aimlessly in the sky.
Yi Tian Dao doesn't care about the consumption of the best Xinyu energy, but in front of Duan Feishue, it's hard to avoid some self-justification.
Oh. Good. Duan Feishue answered, which reflected. Forget it, that's it.
Yi Tian sees that Duan Feishue's face starts to turn red again, so he gives up his previous thought. In this way, he seems to be too stingy.
Thank you very much, Daoyu.
I'll let my father supply Daoyu with the best Xinyu I've consumed. Listening to Yi Tian saying, Duan Feishue's disappointment flashed by, but he still said so.
Little things.
Yi Tian replied, and his mind swept the direction of Duanjian Villa again. A moment later, he saw a group of friars flying away from the direction of Broken Sword Mountain Villa, while another friar was flying up to his own position. The speed, Yi Tian judged, should be the late or peak of the monk. Yi Tian manipulated Dun Tiansua to land on the ground quickly. Duan Daoyu, let's wait on the ground. When the flying snow falls to the ground, Yi Tian hits Dun Tiansua with a magic power and puts it away. At the same time, he secretly clasps the 5-element beads in his hand, ready to escape at any time. After a while, the figure has appeared in Yi Tian's field of vision, and soon came to them.
Dad, are you okay?
Seeing the visitor, Duan Feishue steps forward on the ground, looking excited.
Cher, are you okay?
The middle-aged man, with a square face and upright features, has a short beard on his chin.
He looks at Yi Tian and asks eagerly.
They asked at almost the same time, and then the middle-aged monk had fallen in front of Duan Feishue.
Cher, where have you been for such a long time?
What's this? Duan Jian asks again, and then his eyes fall on Yi Tian. His eyes are full of the meaning of examining. Yi Tian didn't say anything, but Duan Feishue said quickly, Dad, my daughter was cheated by Chuyu. After she cheated her, she was captured and sent to the ghost land. Fortunately, this Taoist friend saved her daughter and took her out of the ghost land and escorted her all the way back.
By the way, Taoist friend, I haven't asked for your name yet? With these words, Duan Feishue points to Yi Tian. Yi Tian.
Here, Yi Tian is not familiar with his life and land, no one knows him, and there is no need to be anonymous, so Yi Tian reported his real name.
Ghostland?
Are you sure it's Ghostland? Cher, hearing Duan Feishue say so, Duan Jian's face changed and asked. Of course, I'm sure, and I took it to the capital of the underworld and was locked up in a white bone hall. According to the thief who sent me in, it's the empress of the underworld who needs a good-looking body and bones.
If it wasn't for Yi Daoyu, my father might never see my daughter again. Duan Feishue explained quickly. Thank you, Yi Xiaoyu.
I can't see that Xiao Yu can come out of the ghost world with her.
It's a great skill. The broken sword nodded toward Yi Tian and said. Well, since Duan Daoyu has been sent, Yi will leave now.
Yi Tian hears that the words of Duanjian are full of doubts, but he doesn't want to explain much, so he wants to leave.
Yi Daoyu, please stay.
Seeing this, Duan Feishua quickly detains Yi Tian, and then says to Duanjian, Dad, Yi Daoyu has come from a long distance, and it's his daughter who asks for escort. There's something wrong on the way, so Yi Daoyu has a grudge against the Hu family in the Black Cloud City. Yi Daoyu has great powers. It's not a big surprise that he can safely enter and leave the ghost land. Even a monk in Yuanyingjing of the Hu family was killed by Yi Daoyu. If it wasn't for Yi Daoyu, I'm afraid his father would never see his daughter again.
When it comes to emotion, Duan Feishua wants to cry.
Duanjian came over and touched Duan Feishua's hair apologetically. She said in a soft voice, Don't worry, Shuer.
No one can hurt you with your father. That Chuyu and the Hu family in the Black Luck City will get justice for you.
With these words, Duanjian looks at Yi Tian again and ponders a little. There is something wrong with my words before, but I love my daughter.
Please don't worry about it. Since you have the means to kill Monk Yuanying, you must have a lot of history in your family or school. Why don't you go to Duanjian Villa with me? Maybe you have some origins.
Smell speech, Yi Tian Baoquanwei, before I saw your villa has a guest to visit, should be a busy business, since Yi has completed the promise, don't bother. There must be some trouble in Duanjian Villa.
Yi Tian won't rush in before he knows what happened. What if he becomes a pond fish? Although he said it, he didn't leave immediately. Yi Daoyu, I'm not busy. I haven't fulfilled the thank you I promised you before. Duanjian ponders. Duan Feishua is the first to say.
When Duanjian hears his daughter's words, he suddenly wakes up.
It turns out that Yi Tian didn't leave because he wanted to thank him.
Fortunately, he is still guessing if the other party is asking from the side what happened just now. As a result, he gestured and had a storage bag on his hand. Yi Xiaoyu, this is 10,000 fairy jade.
Please accept it if you don't pay homage.
Although he can't pay homage, he doesn't think so in his heart.
In fact, 10,000 fairy jade is a large number. In Taiman Lingyu, these fairy jade are enough to show sincerity.
However, to his surprise, Yi Tian glanced at the storage bag and said, Originally, Yi sent Duan Daoyu back.
It's not a thank you gift. Please take it back. Dad, you haven't heard me finish. My daughter has promised Yi Daoyu the best fairy jade.
Yi Daoyu certainly has no shortage of Xianyu. Once Yi Daoyu killed the monk of Yuanyingjing in the Hu family, but he didn't even look at the other side's Zumaji. Next to the section of flying snow at this time said in a hurry. She didn't know that Yi Tian didn't take the other side's Shumi ring because she was worried that there was a tracking mark on the other side's Shumi ring and it was within the scope of the Hu family, and Yi Tian really didn't lack the wealth of a monk in Yuanyingjing. For several reasons, Yi didn't touch the man's Sumishio. It turns out that Duan didn't take the best fairy jade with him.
Let me go back and get it. Shuer, go back with Dad. Duanjian looks at Yi Tian and says. Don't bother.
Yi Tian held out his hand and said, You cannot have the best immortal jade leaf, and you don't have to go to get it.
I want to ask about one thing. If you can tell me about it, you can.
If Yi Xiaoyu has something to ask, Duan will tell you everything he knows. If he doesn't know, he will naturally inquire for Yi Xiaoyu. Duanjian said so, but the color of vigilance in his eyes flashed away.
Yi Tian knows that the father and daughter are very wary. They easily won't believe others, and they don't care. In fact, they don't think so. If they believe everyone, they won't live to this day. He was not polite at all.
He asked with a smile, Mr. Yi wants to know something about the opening of Tsangming Kingdom.
Recently, have you heard about any variables?
Naturally, he would not like a little white to ask about the basic knowledge of Tsangming world, so vaguely ask, a little guidance, what he wants to know will naturally get the answer. Who knows, Yi Tian thought that this question was the most common one, but when he heard what he asked, Duanjian was obviously alert.
It seemed that he looked at Yi Tian a few more times before he said, So Yi Xiaoyu came to Tsangming's order? What is Tsangming Ling? Yi Tian naturally doesn't know this thing.
He searches the soul of Yu Tian, and he doesn't find any information about it. However, since the other party said that Songming order, and it was clearly related to the Songming world, Yi Tian naturally wanted to ask the truth, but he shook his head and said, Master Duan misunderstood.
Yi lived in the mountains for a long time. It was this time that he came out of the mountains to hear people talk about the Songming world. It said that the Songming kingdom was opened only once in 1,000 years.
Mr. Duan thought about how to know more about the Songming kingdom according to Yi's age.
That's the Songming order.
Yi heard it for the first time.
What Yi wants to ask is, can Songming kingdom be opened in March, and there is no change? Dad, do you know something about Songming? If you know, tell Yi Dao Yu. Duan Feishua pulls Duan Jian's sleeve and shakes it. Duan Jian took a look at Duan Feishua and said to Yi Tian, of course, there is no problem about this matter. In fact, people from our village came here for Songming's sake. I will tell you more about it when I lift the ban on my daughter. Since the other side said so, Yi Tian naturally has no opinion. He nodded, retreated some distance. Duan Jianchong nods slightly to Yi Tian.
He feels that the young man is very sensible. In general, Yi Tian can avoid being disturbed by outsiders.
This saves Duan Jian's embarrassment of taking Duan Feishua to the distance to lift the ban and leaving Yi Tian alone.
Yi Tian waited quietly, not paying special attention to Duan Jian and Duan Feishua. Who knows, after more than 10 minutes, Duan Jian still hasn't solved Duan Feishua's prohibition, and it seems that he doesn't recognize any prohibition.
He always stands there frowning and pondering. Yi Tian feels very strange.
If the monks who transformed the divine realm can solve the problem, it is only a matter of minutes. If they can't solve it, they must know the result.
There's no need to be at a loss there. Is it a complicated prohibition? Yi Tian can't help but be more curious.
Before, he knew that Duan Feishua had been banned, but he didn't check it carefully. After waiting for a few minutes, Duan Jian suddenly beckons to Yi Tian and says, Yi Xiaoyu, please come here. The ban on my daughter is very strange.
I can't solve it for a moment. I'd better answer Yi Xiaoyu's question first.
I'll study it carefully when I get back to the villa, right enough.
Driven by curiosity, Yi Tian walks over and looks at Duan Feishua's body. Generally speaking, there are 3 ways to close the cultivation. One is to close the elixir field and cut off the source of mana, the other is to close the vein and the path of mana, and the last is to completely close the vein of elixir field. When Yi Tian saw it, even he was surprised. Duan Feishua was forbidden, but it was not any of them.
It had nothing to do with Dantian and meridians.
The focus is on the mana. For the monks in the cave, the mana is gaseous. For the monks in the sea view, the mana is liquid. The mana in the golden elixir is solid. The mana is condensed in the golden elixir. When the mana is called, the golden elixir releases its powerful mana at any time. Duan Feishua has a gold elixir in her elixir field, but her elixir is wrapped in a layer of white film, which can't complete the transformation of mana. This method is very special. If there is no such source ISM, it can't be detected only by conventional methods. Originally, Yi Tian didn't know what this prohibition was, but since he searched the soul of Tai Chu Yu Tian, he knew it from then on. This is a secret and unique method of prohibition, which is called Jiedun method. This method is to make the forbidden person unconsciously breathe in a kind of gas called Ningxianko refining, and then attach it to the golden elixir with mana, forming such a white film, thus sealing the other person's cultivation. The biggest feature of this method of prohibition is that it is difficult to find the method of prohibition. Another point is that it is difficult to find the place where the prohibition has been imposed, and it is not necessarily possible to find a way to crack it. It seems that it's really the hand of Tai. With Duan Feishua's ban and the connection between Taiman and the underworld, Yi Tian may be able to judge who started. Has Master Duan ever heard of the method of cutting pills? To near, Yi Tian asked. The method of cutting pills? It's the first time I've heard of it. Is there such a name for Schwer's prohibition? Duan Jian heard that Yi Tian asked without end. He immediately responded and asked in a hurry.
Yes, it should be the method of cutting off the elixir, but it is this method that blocks Duan Daoyou's elixir and makes it impossible for the elixir to give out its magic power. Therefore, the prohibition is extremely special.
Moreover, Master Duan may not believe that this method is a unique secret method. Yi Tian nodded slightly. Taiman? Hearing the name, Duan Jian's face changed, and he looked at Yi Tian suspiciously. What Yi Xiaoyu means is that Schwer's prohibition was imposed by Taiman? You just said that it's a technique, like Tai's unique method of cutting pills. As for whether it's such a technique or not, and whether it's spread or not, who knows? Yi Tian's face cools down. As soon as he says that, Duan Jian's reaction is amazing.
It seems that he is specially to stir up the relationship between Taiman and Duanjian Villa.
This Duan Jian is really suspicious. Well, how did Yi Xiaoyu recognize the prohibition? Do you know how to break this prohibition? Duan Jian thought and asked. Yi Tian naturally won't expose his own eyes.
He then perfunctorily said, Yi saw that Master Duan couldn't find out what kind of prohibition it was, so he had an idea and thought of Tai's method of cutting pills.
Please Master Duan to judge whether it is.
As for breaking the prohibition, it needs several kinds of spiritual materials to make pills and dissolve the things that cut pills. Naturally, what he said above is nonsense, but the method of cracking it is true, but he didn't give too much detail.
Do you know the details of refining? Duan Jian continued. Yi himself is a Dan master. Naturally he knows. Yi Tian nodded and admitted. Ah, it's so good. I'd like to invite Yi Xiaoyu to come to Duanjian Villa and let Duan have a little bit of friendship with the landlords, okay? Duan Jian immediately said with a laugh. Well, Yi also wants to know whether Duan Daoyou's prohibition is what he guessed.
Yi Tian said, he heard that Duan Jian didn't immediately say that he was allowed to make antidotes and lift Duan Feishua's ban. Maybe he was not so sure about his words, and he would definitely find other people to see it. But he said that he could make pills, and the other side didn't want to block the road.
It's so good. I'll lead the way.
Seeing that Yi Tian agreed, Duan Jian said, holding Duan Feishua's arm, they set foot on the Feijian and went to Duanjian Villa.
Yi Tian also follows the top magic weapon Feijian.
The speed controlled is not fast or slow, just what a monk in Longmen realm should have.
Duan Jian was very patient.
The two sides opened some distance, but they didn't open too much. In this way, they flew to Duanjian Villa one after another. The villa is actually a large area of buildings, pavilions, houses, and halls. It is located on many peaks of Futu Mountain, and seems to have the scale of a large gate.
From a distance, the highest mountain is straight up and down. There is a slope on the top of the mountain.
From a distance, it looks like a sword with half of its body broken.
Duan Jian and Yi Tian landed on one of the peaks.
The peak has few houses, only a few rooms, and looks simple. There are no too luxurious buildings.
Laozu.
The three had just fallen to the ground.
A healthy old man with white hair and beard came out of a house not far away.
Seeing this man, Duan Feishue immediately called and walked quickly.
The old man grabbed Duan Feishue and nodded to Kanjishan. Then he took Duan Feishue into a house. This is the ancestor of Duanjin Villa. He doesn't usually meet visitors. Don't blame Yi Xiaoyu. Duan explained. The great friar of Yupujing? Yi Tian can't help laughing. Do you dare to blame the great friar of Yupu? This way, please. As he said, Duan Jian took Yi Tian to a pavilion not far away. With a gesture, he gave a cup of tea and a cup of tea to Yi Tian. When it comes to Tsangming Kingdom, it is inseparable from Tsangming order. Since Yi Xiaoyu asked about Tsangming, does he have the idea of entering Tsangming? Yi Tian said, I didn't make a decision whether to go or not. After all, Yi has very limited knowledge of Tsangming Kingdom so far. Yi Xiaoyu is already very good. Tsangming world is opened once every 1,000 years. It takes too long, and some news has been deliberately covered up. Ordinary friars don't even know anything about Tsangming world, such as Shuer, who has never heard of it. Let alone Tsangming Ling. Duan Jian shook his head slightly and said. What is the relationship between Sangming Order and Sangming World? I'd like to hear more about it. Yi Tian nodded slightly and asked. Duan Jiandao said, Sangming Kingdom is opened once 1,000 years, but it doesn't mean that anyone can enter after it is opened. If you want to enter Sangming Kingdom, you need Sangming Order. This is the strange thing about Sangming Kingdom.
Although there are a large number of Sangming orders, there are many people who want to enter the Sangming world.
Without Sangming orders, they can't enter the Sangming world. Therefore, the competition for Sangming orders among various forces is very fierce. Then where can I get the Sangming order? Yi Tian heard this news for the first time. He could not help asking curiously. If Yi Xiaoyu wants to go to Sangming Kingdom, I'd like to advise you that it's very dangerous there. It's better not to go to Xiaoyou's realm. After all, most of the people who enter into it are the peak of Jindan realm and the late monks of Jindan realm, but Yi Xiaoyou's Yuanying talisman can't be used in it. Duan Jian pondered and said. How does Master Duan know that there is a Yuanying rune on his lower body? Hearing Duan Jian say this, Yi Tian asked strangely. He has never used Yuanying rune since he entered the realm of Time and Spirit. He has never even revealed it.
Duan Jian is so good that he knows that he has this kind of thing.
In fact, it's not hard to guess.
Just as Shuer said, Yi Xiaoyu killed a monk in Yuanyingjing of the Hu family in the Black Cloud City.
As far as I know, the only means that can be used by the monks in Longmen realm is Yuanying Fu, so I guess that's why. Duan Jian touched his black beard and said with a determined look. Just Yi Tian's reaction confirmed his guess. I see.
Yi Tian nodded again, but he didn't emphasize that it was the monk of Yuanyingjing of Hu family who was killed by himself.
He continued, thank you for your concern. Yi just wants to know more about Sangming World. If it's too dangerous, he won't go. He also wants to ask Duan, where should Sangming Order come from? Duan Jiandao said, it's also magical. The Sangming orders erupted from the Sangming Kingdom.
The total number is unknown, but according to the records of the number of eruptions in the past, there are at least more than 1,000.
So much? The look on Yi Tian's face is more and more calm. Thousands of Sangming's orders make him want to get one. There must be no problem. Seems to see the idea of Yi Tian, Duan Jian continued, Yi Daoyu should not have a strong school, right?
If there were any, I would not come here to inquire about Sangming. Although Sangming made the number of eruptions reach thousands, no one can touch it.
The eruption of Sangming Order in Sangming Kingdom does not mean that Sangming Kingdom is really open. 1 month later, Sangming Order will start to erupt, but 3 months later, it can be transmitted to Sangming Kingdom by Sangming Order. Only after the Sangming Kingdom recognizes the Sangming Order, can it send the owner in.
But when the Sangming Order erupted, the Sangming Kingdom showed its mysterious power. Anyone who entered the Yuanying Kingdom or above would be hanged, which is beyond doubt. So when Sangming's order erupted, the only people who participated in the looting were the monks in the Golden Elixir realm. Those who were too low in the realm were killed in vain. In the past, every time that Sangming Kingdom erupted the Sangming Order, the major forces would have a fierce scramble, without exception, there would be a fierce war. Because there are Pluto Flower in Seoul Yuan and Sangming Kingdom, which have a miraculous effect on the enhancement of divine thoughts. All forces are bound to win, so all the monks in the Golden Elixir realm often come out. At the beginning of the millennium of Sangming, in order to avoid the recurrence of previous tragedies, the 8 sects jointly made a decision that only a part of the sects were allowed to send people to participate in the fight, and the number of people sent by each sect was limited. For example, there are 8 sects, each of which sends 50 people, and the rest have 10 places where there are great monks in Yupujing. Without the power of Yupu realm, there was no chance to fight for Sangming Order.
Duanjian Villa is one of the 27 that can send 10 places. However, the group you saw before was one of the 8 sects. The monks of Zhengyang Palace, which had 3 ancestors of Yupu realm. They were the most powerful among the 8 sections. They shamelessly took 6 places from Duanjian Villa. In order to avoid a full-scale war with Zhengyang Palace, the ancestors had to endure this time. So when Yi Xiaoyu asked Sangming's order, I was alert. That's why. Yi Tian carefully digested the news that Duan Jian said, and then asked, Master Duan, you don't need so many Tsangming orders, do you? As long as there is one, and then use the magic weapon to bring more people into the cave, won't it solve the problem? Duan Jian smiles and shakes his head, what Yi Xiaoyu can think of, others can think of it. Although the magic cave is precious, there are still many forces. Someone once used this method, but after entering the Tsangming world, they found that the magic cave, the spirit beast bag and the spirit beast ring are good, and they can't open them. That is to say, only Tsangming order can be used in order to be effective, and other means are useless. Yi Tian nodded after hearing the speech. The 8 sects own 50, and the other 27 sects have only 10 people. Isn't it too overbearing that other forces can't join hands to fight against the 8 sects? What's more, there are still some forces who can't get a quota and are willing to miss this good opportunity. Join hands against the 8 sects? Listening to Yi Tian saying, Duan Jian's face showed a strange expression. Yi Xiaoyu has only the cultivation of Longmen realm. Maybe he doesn't know the horror of the great friars in Yupu realm. Besides, he has been practicing in the mountains for a long time, and he doesn't know what the 8 sects are. Let alone the fact that all the forces can't be of one heart and one mind. Even if the other forces really have this idea, they are definitely not the opponents of the 8 sections. What's more, the 8 sects are bound to win the Tsangming kingdom. Once upon a time, when the Tsangming kingdom was opened, there was a sect called Xianming sect. Because of its special skills and fast escape speed, it gained a lot in the Tsangming kingdom. With the flowers of the underworld and the spirit Yuan it obtained, it refined the extremely powerful blood evil spirit. In order to prevent this sect from gaining great benefits from Tsangming kingdom this time, the 8 sects were arranged in advance. In the past 6 months since Tsangming kingdom was about to open, they successively killed the ancestors of Yupujing of Xianming sect and severely damaged the disciples of Xianming sect. Later, those people seemed to run to the ghost kingdom, so the 8 sects relaxed their pursuit. Yi Xiaoyu should have heard something about such a big thing? When it comes to Xianming sect, Yi Tian listens more carefully. When Duan Jian finishes, he frowns and asks, I've heard something about the pursuit of Xianming sect, but the reason I hear is that Xianming sect is poisonous. The 8 sects only pursue and kill in order to eradicate evil spirits. As for the fact that the ancestor of Yupujing of Xianming sect was killed by the 8 sects, I have never heard of it. Duan Jian smiles and shakes his head. What Yi Xiaoyu heard is only the superficial reason. The 8 sects have always done things with high sounding. The Xianming sect deserves to be cut to pieces. But they have not done anything wrong for a day or two. Why did the 8 sects do it at this time? Root out evil spirits? But the real reason for this is that it is not enough for humanity. It's normal that you don't know about the ancestor of Xianming sect, let alone you. I'm afraid ordinary disciples of Xianming sect don't know that there is an ancestor of Yupu realm in our sect. The old ancestor is always mysterious. He never shows up easily. He even tries to hide his existence. The specific reason is not known. Anyway, the Xianming sect is full of evil energy. Yi Xiaoyu must be careful of these people when he walks outside. Be careful. The strange look on Yi Tian's face flashed by, and he promised repeatedly. He didn't say that Xianming sect, including the soul of Blood Evil King, had been swept away by himself. If he said too much, the other party's root problem might involve a lot of bottom cards. But Yi Tian and Duan Jian are still meeting for the first time, so they won't be together. Just as he was talking, the door of the house not far away suddenly opened, and Duan's ancestors and Duan Feishui came out of it. Feeling that Duan Feishui's breath had no change before he went in, Duan Jian stood up to greet him with a change of face. How about Laozu? The ancestor of Duan's family frowned and twisted his beard with his fingers. He always thought hard and was extremely confused. Until Duan Jian finished asking. For a while, he still kept that expression and said, It's really strange. I didn't feel the existence of prohibition. My meridians in Dantian are alright, but Schwer's mana just can't be mobilized. This is the first time I've ever met in my life. It's really strange. Schwer, have you ever talked to your father about Yi Xiaoyu's method of cutting pills? Duan Jian's heart sank. Originally, he thought that Lao Zu's hand must be hundreds of times stronger than himself.
Naturally, he was cured by hand. Unexpectedly, even Lao Tzu, who had rich experience, was helpless. He couldn't help thinking of Yi Tian's words before, so he looked at Duan Feishue and asked. Duan Feishue shook her head. Shuer is afraid of affecting the thinking of her ancestors, so she never said a word.
What is the way to cut off the pill? That's what this long men kid said? What can a little monk know?
The old ancestor of Duan family took a look at Yi Tian, and said with indifference.
Lao Tzu, what Yi Xiaoyu said is not without reason.
He said that Shuer's golden elixir is wrapped with a layer of white film, which cuts off the mana.
This kind of prohibition is a unique way of Taiyi's prohibition. Lao Tzu should not think Yi Xiaoyu is young, so he has his reason to say so.
It's about the prohibition of his daughter. Although the ancestor doesn't care about Yi Tian, Duan Jian simply tells Yi Tian what he said.
Bullshit. Is the golden elixir covered with white film? Think he has perspective eyes? Can you see all this?
The old ancestor of the Duan family came into the main place.
He didn't listen to half of what Duan Jian said. Haha, I'm just guessing. It's not true. Don't let my words affect the lifting of Duan Feishue's ban.
The Leaf Sky faintly smile for a while, say.
Duan Feishue's ban does no harm to his health.
The difference between early lifting and late lifting is whether he can recover his cultivation earlier and continue to practice earlier.
Nothing else matters.
Therefore, Yi Tian does not want to mention Taiyiman again, so as not to be thought that he is provoking the relationship between the two. When the Duan family has no way to ban Duan Feishue, they will naturally come to find themselves as a living horse doctor.
You talk first.
I'll check some ancient books to see if there is any record of this situation. The old ancestor of Duan family seems to be satisfied with Yi Tian's timely attitude. After he says it, he disappears from the original place.
Lao Tzu is such a temper.
He doesn't pay attention to anyone, even if he is a great friar in Yupujing.
Don't care too much about Yi Xiaoyu. After the old ancestor of Duan family left, Duan Jian shook his head and explained with a bitter smile.
Then he continued the topic just now and said, how sure is Yi Xiaoyu that Shuer's ban is that kind of method of cutting pills? Yi Tian said with a smile, Master Duan, this question is actually very difficult to answer.
Even if I say I am 100% sure, Master Duan may not believe it.
If there is any other possibility, because he doesn't know what kind of prohibition method will achieve such an effect.
Let's just guess.
That's what I said, Shuer.
You go to have a rest first. There's your father here with Yi Daoyu. Duan Jian nodded slightly, then said to Duan Feishue.
No, there are many affairs in Duan Zhuang.
Yi just inquires about Songming. Now that he has a general idea, he will leave. With these words, Yi Tian stood up and said, then he punched Duan Feishue. Duan Daoyu, see you later.
With that, Yi Tian doesn't wait for Duan Jian and Duan Feishue to react, so he turns into a light and flies to the distance.
Yi Daoyu, please stay. When Duan Jian hesitates, Duan Feishue calls in a loud voice. As if he had not heard of it, Yi Tian went far away and soon lost his sight in the sky.
He really wanted to get at Songming order from Duanjian Mountain Villa, but Duanjian Mountain Villa attached great importance to this quota. He was empty-mouthed, and the other party would not give him this opportunity. Things have to start with Duan Feishue. Maybe when the Duan family really can't lift the ban, they will come to find themselves. Otherwise, they will stay here on their own initiative, or they still hang on, which will arouse the suspicion of the Duan family. Dad, Yi Daoyu has saved his daughter's life several times, but you just send her some news.
Does it seem that her sincerity is not enough?
When Yi Tian goes far away, Duan Feishue is a little disappointed and says. Shuer, as you know, Yi Tian doesn't tell his origin all the time.
Even if he works hard in the mountains, he should have a teacher, right? He knew very little about Songming Kingdom. How could he know so clearly about the prohibition of Taiyi? It's an extraordinary time for Songming Kingdom to open up. We have to be careful in everything.
As Duan Jian was talking, he suddenly looked up into the distance and murmured, it seems that Duan Jian Villa is in trouble again.
The people of Taiyi family have come to the door.
With that, he told Duan Feishue to wait here for a while, and then he turned into a light to meet the people. When he first moved, the ancestors of Duan family flew up from a mountain and also met the people from Tian in the distance. There were more than a dozen uninvited guests. They looked like nothing in Duanjian Mountain Villa. They fled from the horizon and went straight into the range of Duanjian Mountain Villa. They didn't even slow down, let alone let people know. Duanjian and Duan's ancestors went up to the sky with a gloomy face and stopped in front of each other. Mr. Li, what a rare guest. I didn't expect that the little broken sword villa could welcome such a big man as you. Duan's ancestors put on an obvious unwelcome gesture and said sarcastically. That Li Leigui is one of the two ancestors of Taiyiman's Yupu realm. If it wasn't for this realm, the ancestors of Duan family would not appear easily. Old Li was thin and thin, his head was a little big, and his proportion was not in harmony with his body. His withered face had a pair of goldfish eyes. He didn't care about Duan's sarcasm. Instead, he looked like Duan. Is this really a small broken sword mountain villa? I don't think so. Broken sword villa even dares to fight people from Tai Gate. Is there going to be 9 gates in Taiman Lingyu in the future? Hearing the speech, Duan Laozu's face became more gloomy. Strange Old Li, if you want to make trouble in Duanjian Villa for any reason, although Duanjian Villa is not as powerful as you can bite a piece of your flesh if you want to be ruthless. The Old Li turned his eyes and glanced at the bottom of Duanjian Villa. Your daughter knows that the Hu family in Black Cloud City is from Tai family. Duan Feishue, together with another friar, injured 3 members of the Hu family. How can this account be calculated? Duan Jian didn't hear Taiyiman's old monster Li say about killing the Hu family's Yuan Yingjing friar. He felt a little strange in his heart. However, when Laozu was dealing with others, Duan Jian didn't jump in. It's not easy for the Hu family to learn from their misdeeds. On the contrary, it's you who have banned Shuer and closed the golden elixir. I won't let it go easily. Knowing that the other party is likely to take advantage of the Hu family's affairs, the old ancestor of the Duan family came to fight back and change the topic. Who knows, as soon as he said this, Li Leigui didn't do much, but several Taiyiman who came with him changed their faces and looked at Li Leigui one after another. In this case, the old ancestor of Duan family had some conjectures in his heart. Did Duan Feishue's prohibition really come from someone from Taiyiman? Judging from the other party's reaction, it's absolutely inseparable from Taiyiman. Simply, the old ancestor of Duan family continued to explore, don't deny it. Although Taiyiman's Dan cutting method is not known to outsiders, I'm not blind. I have many things in my heart, and I can't hide them. It's a joke. How can Taiyiman cut off Dan? Do you want to rely on Taiyiman for the affairs of Duan's daughter? Now hand over Duan Feishue and the wounded man, and let me deal with them. Otherwise, Taiyiman and Duanjian Villa will go to war in an all-round way. Mr. Li, do you think Duan Kexi was frightened? Do you think Duanjian Villa is made of paper and clay? Believe it or not, even if the war starts in an all-round way, even though Duanjian Villa suffers heavy losses, I'm afraid Tiananmen will fall out of the 8 sections. If you don't believe it, try it. The Duan family's ancestor also said without showing any weakness, but this is within the scope of Duanjian Villa. Once he started, it's very likely that Duanjian Villa, which has been handed down for many years, will be destroyed. If he doesn't fight, he will never start here. Moreover, judging from the reaction of these people, Duan Feishue's prohibition should have something to do with Tai. In particular, the strange old man Li didn't even look at Duan Feishue's prohibition and directly denied it. It means that there is no silver in this place and he doesn't admit it. It's made of paper or clay. It's easy to know when you try. Just at this time, a voice suddenly sounded from the sky without warning. When the voice reverberated in the sky, several ripples appeared, and then a white fat old man came out of the ripples. Gu Leigui. Seeing this old man appear, although Duan's ancestors tried to suppress the mood fluctuations, the color of fear in their eyes still flashed away. Ji's name is Gu Chun Yuan, and Li's name is the ancestor of Tai. But Li's name is in the early stage of Yupu realm, which is similar to that of Duan's. But Gu Leigui has broken through to the middle stage of Yupu realm, which is stronger than Gu Leigui. At ordinary times, even Li Leigui would not easily appear in public. He just practiced hard in the clan, not to mention Galeagwe, who had a higher level. This time, the only two old monsters in Taeyiman's Yupu realm appeared at the same time, and the ancestors of the Duan family had realized the seriousness of the matter.
Gu Daoyu and Li Daoyu, I'm afraid they didn't come together for something of the Hu family, did they?
If you have something to say, let's go to the light. The old ancestor of the Duan family was on guard in his heart. He didn't talk any more nonsense and asked directly. Galeagwe said with a smile, naturally, it's for the sake of the Hu family.
If I can't guarantee the protection of the monks in our sect, what's the face of our sect? However, there must be a solution to everything. It's the same vein of cultivation. Unless there is no solution, I don't want to solve it by force. It seems that the last sentence of Gu Daoyu is the key point. The ancestors of the Duan family are old and mature.
Hearing the sound, they know that Taeyiman must have a plan.
Unconsciously, they squint and look at Ge Leagwe. Duan Kexi, don't take my kindness as something else. It just gives you a chance to turn around. If you think Taeyiman is to scare you, you can try it. Galeagwe's smiling face suddenly closed and said in a gloomy voice.
Looking at Ge Leagwe and Li Leagwe, as well as the dozen monks who came with them, Duan Leagwe finally suppressed his evil spirit and asked in a deep voice, "Come on, what do you want?"
Haha, that's the way to know the current affairs, so that we don't waste our time. Let the place where Duanjian Villa got Sangming's order come out, and the Hu family's affairs will be written off. Gu Leagwe finally said the real purpose of this.
Hearing the speech, Duan was so angry that his hair was moving. He said in a cold voice, this time Sangming Kingdom was opened, each of the 8 sects had 50 places to get Sangming order, and the rest of the forces had 10 at most. Just a short time ago, Zhenyang Palace was forced to take 5 places.
Do you want to have the last 5 places in the same class? What? Duanjian Villa thinks that it can't provoke Zhenyang Palace, so it gives half of the quota out. On the contrary, does it think it's too easy to bully? Forget it. We don't need all the 5 places left. We'll leave 1 for Duanjian Villa and the other 4 for Tai. Gu Leagwe raised his eyebrows and said miserably. Wishful thinking. Old Monster Duan burst out and yelled. It's the first time that Duanjian Villa has been bullied like this in many years. Boom. Boom. And it's very close. The momentum of Gu Leagwe and Li Leagwe also burst out.
Looking at the posture, the two sides are at each other's end.
Wait a minute.
Seeing that things were not good, Duan Jian gave a loud drink, and then sent a message to Duan Laozu. Laozu, Ge Leagwe didn't mention the killing of the Yuanyingjing of the Hu family. I'm afraid they didn't think it had something to do with Shuer. It would be better if they could expose it with 4 places. If you insist, even if there is no conflict at this time, when Sangming order is seized, the disciples of the villa will be targeted. They may not only get nothing, but also have casualties. After all, it is allowed to fight for Sangming order. Therefore, from the current situation, leaving Sangming order is not good for Duanjian Villa, and Sangming world is not something we can touch.
After listening to Duan Jian's words, the ancestor of Duan family just nodded silently.
Although he felt that it was very cowardly to do so, what Duan Jian said was the truth. Who made his strength inferior to others? Seeing that he finally got through with Laozu, Duan Jian made a gesture reluctantly, and 4 triangular signboards flew towards Gu Leagwe.
These 4 credit cards are the evidence to get Sangming's order outside Sangming's world. Now they can only give up.
Gu Leagwe rolled up the sleeve of his robe, put away the letter card, and hummed coldly, why waste half a day's talk if I had been so happy so early?
With that, he didn't even say hello to Duan Leagwe.
He took Taeyiman and left Duanjian Villa. Only a group of disciples of Duanjian Villa looked at each other, their faces were very ugly.
Laozu, let's not take part in Sangming's affairs. From Taiyi's reaction, it's likely that Shuer's prohibition is their hand.
It's impossible for them to lift the ban.
I think we should try Tian.
If it wasn't for him to help, Shuer would not have come back. He should have no intention when Taeyiman went far away, Duan Jian said to Laozu.
Then do it.
You should deal with everything by yourself.
I'll shut up. Don't disturb me again unless it's about the life and death of the villa.
I hope to break through the middle stage of Yupu as soon as possible, so as to avoid being bullied by the 8th sex again and again. The old ancestor of Duan family waved his hand in frustration, and then disappeared. In the depth of Futu Mountain, far away from Duanjian Villa, Tian kept his speed within the normal speed range of the late monks and flew far away. At a certain moment, he thought of a move. Lying quietly in the Broken Sword Villa, a 4-star heartworm suddenly flapped its wings and flew to the position where Tian was. Sensing the return of the heartworm, Tian Lu ponders, and his body falls rapidly. He soon comes to a valley inside. Then, his body flashes, disappears from the original place, and no longer sees half of his body. After a few tens of breath, the direction of the Broken Sword Villa is a light escape, flying to the place where Tian disappeared, revealing his body shape. It is Duanjian who left Duanjian Villa to pursue Tian. Standing on the ground, Duanjian opened his mind and covered the ground tens of miles around. At the beginning, he was calm. However, with the constant exploration of his mind, he gradually straightened up, and then his brows slightly wrinkled. He felt that Tian had disappeared from here. There was no other reason but Tuduan or Fengdan. Although Tuduan or Fengdan could not be seen by ordinary naked eyes, they could feel each other's breath through the exploration of Xinyan. At the moment, his mind has been enlarged to thousands of miles. No matter underground or in the air, there is no sense of Tian's breath. And this range, with the speed of a monk in Longmen realm, can't be reached in such a short time. After searching again and again, Duanjian didn't give up and began to explore again. He was more careful than before, but he never got anything. More than 10 minutes later, Duanjian stopped and had to accept the fact that Tian had disappeared. A Longmen monk almost disappeared from his eyes. This is a strange thing. No matter whether he is willing to believe it or not, the fact is that he can't find Tian. In the sky, Duanjian looks around and aimlessly searches for Tian. His regret is getting heavier and heavier. He didn't need to look for Tian in this way. He could keep Tian at that time with a word. However, he is too suspicious. He always thinks that Tian's appearance is too coincidental. He always thinks that he is carrying some secret. But now, Duan Feishua's only hope of lifting the ban is gone. He has to continue to think of other ways. For a moment, Duanjian is in a state of confusion. At this time, dozens of miles away from the deep underground, Tianjun quietly hiding in the deep underground, kneeling meditation. He won't let Duanjian find himself for the time being. Duan's ancestors and Duanjian are very suspicious. They always have a suspicious attitude towards themselves. Even if they show up now, the other party may not cherish them. On the contrary, they make the other party feel that they are setting up a game and leave on purpose. Even if Duan Feishua's ban is removed, it's not now, and Duanjian Villa can't help paying some price. Moreover, he will not place all the information sources on the Broken Sword Villa. So he stayed underground for more than 2 hours, until Duanjian finally left in disappointment, and Tiankai continued to escape to the distance. At this time, he didn't use the 5-element pearl. This kind of treasure costs too much mana. If it wasn't necessary, he would not use it easily. Until he escaped for hundreds of miles, Tiankai left the ground, took back the 4-star heartworm that had always followed him in the air, and continued to escape away from the Broken Sword Villa. Tian, who is in the process of escaping, suddenly stops. More than a dozen escape lights in the distance fly past him a few miles away, and soon disappear in the sky like a meteor. Where are Taiyimen going to brag? Tian's eyesight is amazing. Although those people are just a flash of light, he has recognized that it is Gu Leigui and Li Leigui who have been to Duanjian Villa before. He had not seen these people, but he searched the soul of Chu Yutian, a disciple of Tai school, and naturally knew the faces of the characters in the school. Tian pondered for a moment, changed a direction, and flew to the opposite direction of the Tianaimen. After more than an hour, when a large-scale city in the distance appeared in the scope of divine exploration, his figure flashed into the underground again. Using the big seal magic weapon, he created a spacious space, then took out a magic weapon and went into the cave. In the cave, Xianran has recovered to the cultivation of the golden elixir realm. He is sitting quietly inside, meditating on his knees,
with some abnormal white on his face.
Sensing the appearance of Yi Tian, he quickly stood up, "Master." After the call, he stood aside very respectfully. Yi Tian glanced at the cave, his eyes fell on Xianrun's face, and said with a smile, "It seems that all the spirit beasts have recognized the Lord."
"Yes, Master, they have all recognized the Lord."
Xianrun replied respectfully again.
"The golden eye god carving has also recognized its master?" Yi Tian asked uneasily.
"Yes, the golden eye god carving is the only 6th level monster, and it has reached the later stage of the 6th level, which costs a lot of ideas." When speaking, Yi Tian can feel that he is obviously tired. He nodded with satisfaction and said, "This demon was originally captured by the Great Friar of the Holy Wing clan and should have been executed, but I think it's still useful, so I stayed."
"Fortunately, it hasn't been transformed."
"It's the most difficult to recognize the Lord, but it's not impossible. At present, our strength is insufficient.
If we use it properly, it will be of great use. You can recover your mind inside and call you out at any time if you need to."
"Yes, I do."
Xianrun returned respectfully.
Yi Tian gestured, and the luxury car driver from Wei Wuyan appeared in front of Xianrun. "Choose 3 fast monsters as the vehicle control beasts, which may be used in the future." With that, without waiting for Xianrun to respond, Yi Tian has disappeared from the magic cave. After collecting the cave and getting out of the ground, Yi Tian drives an ordinary top-grade magic sword and flies to the direction of the big city. From the mouth of Chu Tian, Yi Tian already knows about the geographical situation of Taimanlingyu. This city is called Mengan City, which is a relatively large city in Taimanlingyu. In front of the city gate, the men and women friars in and out of the city gate shuttle back and forth, and occasionally some cars can be seen flying in and out of the sky, showing a prosperous style. In order not to attract too much attention, Yi Tian did not fly into the city from the air, but walked slowly into the city from the gate. After inquiring, he turned into a street with many pedestrians. The city is as big as any other big city Yi Tian has ever seen. It is hundreds of miles around.
You can't see the edge at a glance.
There are many shops on both sides of the street. In addition to the practitioners, there are also some ordinary people who have no accomplishments.
Golan restaurants are also everywhere.
Yi Tian goes on, and goes into several shops selling cultivation resources.
Unfortunately, he doesn't find what he needs.
Although the cultivation resources in the shop are very rich, they are not too precious. Yi Tian is very rich in resources, and naturally despises ordinary cultivation resources. Just like other spiritual realms, the spiritual materials of Taiman's spiritual realm are also very popular. It is impossible to buy them in ordinary shops. Even Yi Tian went into a shop selling all kinds of news. Unfortunately, he didn't hear about the information about the space passage to the Holy Spirit realm, which made Yi Tian a little disappointed. However, Yi Tian didn't expect to hear all the news here. This matter has to be solved slowly. Continue to move forward. In front of an extremely luxurious hall, Yi Tian took a look at the plaque hanging on the hall, only to see the red plaque with 3 gilded characters Supreme Pavilion. Above the steps at the entrance of the hall, 2 graceful nuns stood with a smile, as if they were welcoming guests.
Many nuns were coming in and out.
After a few glances, Yi Tian confirms that this is also a shop selling cultivation resources, but the scale of this shop is far larger than any one Yi Tian had entered before. To be able to name the Supreme Pavilion as domineering, it seems that this shop should be a bit attractive. Yi Tianlu pondered a little, then walked into the main hall in the smiling greetings of 2 welcome nuns. Different from other shops Yi Tian saw, there are many exquisitely arranged open sale areas in the main hall. Many cultivation resources are placed on shelves of different shapes, and there is no protection or prohibition on them. It seems that no one is worried about the idea of these resources. This situation made Yi Tian immediately realize that the power behind the Supreme Pavilion must be very powerful, and it might even be one of the 8 sections. After all, for the Langya Animal Car Shop, which doesn't look very impressive, the owner behind it is also Dikuan Gate, one of the 8 sects. After a brief look at several sales areas, it can be seen that although the resources inside are much higher than those of the previous ones, they are still like chicken ribs in Yi Tian's opinion, which may be very useful to ordinary monks, but Yi Tian does not lack the same resources. As far as magic weapons are concerned, the highest level magic weapons that Yi Tian sees are just top level magic weapons, and even the half-immortal soldiers don't see one. Naturally, Yi Tian has no attraction for the 3 immortal weapons he already has.
But Yi Tian didn't leave the Supreme Pavilion.
At least through a simple browsing, he can have a general understanding of the resources of Taimanlingyu, or maybe he can find some treasures that are ignored by others. With such a mind, Yi Tian strolled slowly to the depth of the hall. All of a sudden, he picked his eyebrows and quickened his pace. There was a quarrel not far ahead. Out of dozens of meters, Yi Tian saw the 2 sides of the quarrel.
Barbarian tribes?
Seeing the appearance of some of them, Yi Tian immediately thought of a cultivation clan he knew from soul searching. This was the first time he saw a barbarian with his own eyes. The barbarians are similar to the human race in appearance, but they also have obvious differences. The most prominent feature is that they are tall and strong, have brown skin, and their hair is scattered. They are tied with ribbons casually, as if they are not fully civilized. In particular, their clothes were not as elegant as those of the Terran friars. In front of them, a few young barbarians were naked on their upper bodies, revealing their strong bodies. They were wearing short skirts made of animal skins, and necklaces made of bones and teeth of unknown monsters. There were 8 barbarians, including 3 young women in addition to 5 men. Although their dress is different from that of the male barbarians, it is very simple compared with that of the Terran women. They are also naked with their upper arms, and a large vest made of animal skin is very loose on their upper body. On the other side of the quarrel were 5 Terran friars, all in the realm of the golden elixir. The 2 sides were red in the face, and there was the possibility of fighting at any time.
Yi Tian didn't get too close.
He just looked at it quietly for a while, and soon he understood the whole story. The reason for the dispute is that the 8 barbarians ordered a flying sword, which is the magic weapon of the Bansian soldiers.
Now they have just got it. But it happened to be seen by 5 Terran golden elixir friars. They insisted on buying the Banxian flying sword at the original price.
Because the magic weapon of this grade is very rare, the barbarian naturally refused, but the 5 friars did not allow each other to leave, resulting in a dispute.
The right and wrong of this is very obvious.
After learning the original story, Yi Tian's aversion to the 5 human friars rose sharply, and he was quite shameless. The barbarians are more powerful than the Terrans in the realm of time and spirit, and occupy a very wide area, which is also much larger than the area where the Terran friars live. They usually live in a place called wilderness in the south of the spiritual realm. The barbarians and the Terrans occasionally communicate with each other, but there is not much intersection between wells and rivers. It's not uncommon for such barbarians to go deep into the human race, but it's absolutely rare. The friars of the 5 clans relied on this as the region of the human race. Although the 8 barbarians were also equivalent to the realm of the golden elixir of the human race, they did not hold the slightest truth, but they were not willing to give up and unreasonable.
Are you so unreasonable?
Let's go and ignore them. Tired of being entangled, one of the 8 barbarian youths, who looked a little older, said in a rude voice. He pushed away a friar of the human race who was standing in front of him and took the other 7 out. The barbarians are generally much higher than the Terran friars, and they are extremely strong. The height of the knocked-down Terran friars is only up to the other side's shoulder, but they can't stand when they are pushed. They quickly step back and fall on the ground. The man stood up and yelled, and stopped the barbarians again. In the Terran territory, you barbarians are allowed to behave wildly.
Do you really think we Terrans are easy to bully? You don't want to know the status of Zhenyang Palace? What is Zhenyang Palace but not Zhenyang Palace? Are the people in Zhenyang Palace so unreasonable?
The Zhuan Hengxi was not moved by the name of Zhenyang Palace, one of the 8 sects, but rushed out of the palace.
You want to leave after you hit someone? The man monk who was pushed down became angry and yelled again.
A flying sword appeared in his hand, and the sword flashed to the barbarian man. The man frowned and had a stick made of unknown material in his hand. Then he lifted the sword and banged it. The 2 magic weapons collided and made a huge impact. Even a beautiful wooden pillar in the hall was cut by the flying sword.
The Terran monk didn't resist the opponent's move.
Not only the sword was blown away, but also the tiger's mouth was broken and blood flowed out.
Well, you barbarian, you dare to fight again and again. You are really looking for death.
The bloody friar said in a hate voice, reached for a move and called back the flying sword. The other 4 friars also put out magic weapons to stop the 8 barbarians.
The 8 barbarians did not show any weakness.
They all took out a magic weapon in the shape of a stick and were ready to start at any time. All the Taoist friends of the human race, the barbarians are not human.
They are not human. Now they bully the human race.
I order all the Taoist friends of the human race in the name of Zhengyang Palace to take down these barbarians.
The followers are the friends of Zhengyang Gate.
If you want to stay out of the trouble, they are the enemies and friends of Zhengyang Gate.
Do you want to do it?
Seeing that the number of barbarians was more than their own side, and it seemed that they were not easy to be provoked, the friar with bleeding hands at the front took the other 4 people to step back and get out of the way, but he looked fiercely at the friars nearby.
How could they not understand the thoughts of the Zhengyangmen people? As soon as they didn't want to get into the muddy water, they all stepped back.
No one stopped the 8 barbarian youths according to the man's intention.
The 8 people took this opportunity to stride forward and obviously didn't want to entangle with the people of Zhengyang. I dare not listen to the orders of Zhengyang Palace. Seeing this, the 5 people in Zhengyang Palace suddenly lose face. The injured monk looks fiercely at the nearby Terran monks.
Some of them are monks in Yuanying realm, most of them are in Jindan realm, and his eyes finally fall on Yi Tian. Among these people, Yi Tian is the only one who practices in Longmen.
Afraid of the barbarians?
Are you not afraid of Zhengyang Palace? The man saw that Yi Tian's realm was low, so he should be the easiest to grasp it.
He drank coldly in his mouth and grabbed it like electricity.
Originally, Yi Tian just looked on coldly. Although he was not ashamed of what the friars of Zhengyang Palace had done, he did not intend to do it.
After all, although the barbarian youth were entangled, they did not suffer.
But at this time, the friars of Zhengyang Palace put their hands on themselves for no reason, but Yi Tian would not be polite anymore. Yi Tian's body is still, as if he is scared to be silly, or as if he wants to be grasped by the other side with the cultivation of Longmen realm. Just when everyone thought that Yi Tian would be hurt in the other's hand, the monk of Zhengyang Palace suddenly drew back his hand as if he had been stabbed by a needle, and exclaimed in his mouth. Until this time, people nearby saw that a dark golden mantis about 4 inches long had appeared in front of Yi Tian, with a touch of red blood on the big knife of the front paw.
However, the monk of Zhengyang Palace holding his right hand tightly and squatting down painfully, one hand has become dark black, which is obviously poisoned by the mantis.
This 4th order mantis didn't flash and was collected by Yi Tian. He doesn't want to reveal his real strength yet, but he can't use the shadowless snake to avoid being found by Taiman, so he uses this mantis.
Go away, Taoist friends.
People in Zhengyang Palace are used to relying on the strong and bullying the weak. Be careful of their revenge. Yi Tian Gang just put the mantis away, but he heard the voice of a male monk's idea. This voice is very strange. Yi Tian is sure that he hasn't talked with this person. However, with a glance, he sees a skinny friar of Jindanjing in the crowd not far away looking at him. Seeing Yi Tian's eyes, he slightly nods his head.
Yi Tian smiles and nods his head to show his thanks.
You are a traitor of the Terran friars.
How dare you rely on the spirit insects to attack the people in Zhengyang Palace?
Yi Tian Gang just took back his eyes, but the other 4 monks of Zhengyang Palace came to Yi Tian step by step. They kept scanning the crowd, as if they wanted to see if Yi Tian's companions existed. When Yi Tian saw the posture of these people, he looked down upon them even more.
He hummed coldly, Zhengyang Palace? Yi tells you that you are not worthy to represent the human race.
If you don't want to die, just do it with that. Yi Tian holds his arms and coldly looks at the 4 people who are about to arrive at Zhengyang Palace. However, he feels a little strange in his heart. A shop of such scale as Zizong must have a small background, but so far, not only the forces behind it have not come out to stop the conflict, but even the monks in the shop are indifferent to it. This is absolutely abnormal. It seems that they are very afraid of Yi Tian's favor.
At last, the 4 people in Zhengyang Palace didn't keep close to Yi Tian.
They stopped 3 steps away from Yi Tian, but they didn't retreat. They just faced each other coldly.
Humph, bully the leaf day disdains ground cold hume, quasi-body then walk. Let you go?
One of the monks in Zhangyang Palace yelled, and a flying sword in his hand turned into a flash of electric light. Yi Tian made a gesture, and a black and white light flashed. Then he heard a click, but the other side's flying sword was cut off by the black and white light, turned into two broken swords and fell to the ground.
If you come here, you are the one who breaks in two.
Yi Tian hums again and turns to leave. The monk whose flying sword was cut off changed his face. It was his own life flying sword that was cut off. It had reached the level of top magic weapon and was closely related to his mind.
Flying sword was better than cutting off.
His mind was also injured to a certain extent, so it was not easy at this time. At this time, I saw a flash of people outside, and nearly 20 monks in uniform clothes entered the hall.
Sixth elder martial brother.
Seeing someone coming, the friar gave a cry, and then pointed to the 8 barbarian youths who stopped by Yi Tianhe and did not leave immediately. Sixth elder martial brother, they ignored Zhangyang Palace and dared to bite elder martial brother do with spirit insects. The man who was called Sixth Elder Martial Brother had a sharp mouth and fierce eyes. He didn't say a word when he heard that. With a wave of his right hand in the air, more than 20 disciples of Zhangyang Palace came with him and surrounded Yi Tian and 8 young men and women of barbarians.
Many monks who watched retreated one after another and gave up a large area of the supreme pavilion.
Don't worry, you are the most righteous human race I have ever seen.
Let the barbarians protect you. Yi Tian's face is gloomy.
When he looks at the disciples of Zhangyang Palace, the leading barbarian youth comes to Yi Tian and says, "My name is Najiak, and you?"
"My name is Yi Tian. I'll call you Naji. There are too many words to remember." Compared with the monks in Zhangyang Palace, Yi Tian was the most sincere barbarian youth.
Although he certainly didn't need the other party's protection, he still released his friendship. Well, boys with a sense of justice, and barbarians with a sense of righteousness, you can go on your way. Seeing this, the 6 elder martial brother sneered and waved his hand again. Many Zhangyang Palace disciples were not afraid that this was the site of the supreme pavilion. They immediately sacrificed their magic weapons and attacked Yi Tian and the 8 barbarian men and women.
In a twinkling, more than 20 magic weapons were flying around.
Many of them were in front of Yi Tian and the 8 barbarian men and women.
The attack was extremely fierce. They didn't leave a hand at all.
They were full of killing moves. They wanted to kill Yi Tian and the other 9 people on the spot.
The method of Zhangyang Palace is really fierce.
If it wasn't for me, I would have fallen on the spot without accident if I had put it on any monk and longmen. In the face of such a group of unreasonable murderers, Yi Tian's heart no longer has a trace of benevolence. When he moves, he gives way to his 3 flying swords. At the same time, a black cloud suddenly gushes out of his side and turns into more than 20 strands.
In the buzzing vibration, he rushes to more than 20 monks in Zhangyang Palace. Those friars are all in the golden elixir realm.
Even the friar with sharp mouth and monkey cheek, who is called 6th elder martial brother, is just the peak of the golden elixir realm. Sensing the flying shadow, he yelled, "Be careful, spirit bug." Immediately, he pointed out a piece of fire, which involved the shadow.
After taking the elixir refined by Yi Tian, these clematis have mutated.
Their body is as hard as a magic weapon, especially the common fire attribute Taoist art. In a flame, the clematis has not been affected at all. They have already jumped on each other's body in a flash and started to gnaw at each other crazily.
A cry of surprise rang out, and the shadows were flying to the outside of the supreme pavilion.
Many wire ants behind each person rushed on like maggots of tarsal bones, and the scene was chaotic.
"Let's go."
Be careful of the people in Zhangyang Palace looking at the disciples of Zhangyang Palace being chased by Tian ants, Yi Tian said to 8 young men and women of barbarians.
"Brother Yi Tian, let's go together."
Najiak replied obstinately, listening to the screams of the disciples of Zhangyang Palace outside the supreme pavilion.
Yi Tian waved his hand. "No need, you can go at any time if he wants to go. Let's go. It's far away from the wild. Be careful of the dangerous people. I think we'll meet again. Take care of yourself."
Najiak said in a gruff voice, hugged Yi Tian heavily, and then quickly walked out of the Supreme Pavilion with the other 7 barbarian youths with a wave of his hand. Then Yi Tian walked out slowly and stood in front of the gate of the Supreme Pavilion, coldly watching the wire ants gnawing at the disciples of Zhengyang Palace. At this time, in a room of the Supreme Pavilion, 2 middle-aged friars, a man and a woman, were sitting cross-legged, with no expression on their faces.
Elder Martial Brother Shao, let them make trouble in the Supreme Pavilion like this? Dressed in flowery clothes, the middle-aged nun finally broke the silence and asked. The Kanglin world is about to open. If people in Zhengyang Palace want to make enemies, let them make enemies. Let's just sit on the mountain and watch the tiger fight. There are people behind the barbarians. Yi Tian should have a different background. Otherwise, he won't attack Zhengyang Palace. The more trouble Zhengyang Palace has, the better. If the people of Zhengyang Palace kill Yi Tian, it doesn't matter even if they tear down the Supreme Pavilion. Let's just watch. Next to the white face, big nose of the middle-aged friar closed his eyes and whispered. Both of them use the idea to communicate with each other. Naturally, Yi Tian can't hear what they say. At a certain moment, he suddenly has an idea, and at the same time, he flies away to the distance. More than 2,000 Tian ants, who had been gnawing at Zhengyang Palace disciples, soon disappeared in the sky. Within a 10-mile radius of the Supreme Pavilion, the more than 20 disciples of Zhengyang Palace had been gnawed by the Tian ants. All of them were destroyed by the Tian ants, and some of them fell to the ground and kept rolling. After Yi Tian left for tens of breath, dozens of lights came from the distance. Some of them fell near the Supreme Pavilion. They went to see the disciples of Zhengyang Palace who had been flown away by Yi Tian, but the others didn't stay at all. They just crossed the empty shadows in the air and quickly chased Yi Tian in the direction where he was going. Search. This son should know a secret skill of invisibility. Most of them have already escaped. After more than 10 minutes, the group of people in Zhengyang Palace suddenly stopped after catching up with a foothill. One of them, a reddened and plump friar, looked around and said. The young man who used to attack the Jindan realm disciple of Zhengyang Palace was always within the scope of his mind, but he suddenly disappeared here. With the strength of his mind, he could no longer feel where he was going. With a command from him, nearly 30 monks of Huashan and Yuanying immediately spread out with a tacit understanding. Each of them flew away for tens of miles, forming a big circle between each other. Then they flashed into the ground one after another. The fat friar, whose face turned red, made continuous gestures, slowly closed his eyes, released his mind, expanded his scope, and continued to explore little by little. Nearly half an hour passed by. The disciples of Zhengyang Palace, who had escaped to the underground, began to spread and continue to explore in all directions when they gathered around for dozens of miles without any results. And the red-faced fat friar also changed many directions continuously. Even within thousands of miles, he had explored again, but still got nothing. At this time, more than an hour has passed since the beginning of the search. The man's eyes are gloomy, as if he can drip water, flashing from time to time, emitting a terrifying light. 3 Elder, still did not find that person. 3 Elder, did not find. One after another, the monks of Zhengyang Palace returned to the red-faced monk to report. Then they stood beside the 3 elders and did not continue to search elsewhere. It was obvious that they had lost confidence. More and more monks came back. Until all the people came back one after another, no one found the target. Strange, Elder 3, that man is just the cultivation of Longmen realm. No matter how fast he escapes and how strong his stealth ability is, he can't escape the exploration of so many of us. But the fact is that there is no trace. It's incredible. A monk of Zhengyang Palace who seemed to have some status pondered and said. The 3 elders kept silent and looked around like hawks. A moment later, they took a look back at the monk who had just spoken and said, Zhengyang Palace has never suffered such a big loss in hundreds of years. If this incident can't be dealt with properly, Zhengyang Palace will become a joke in the spirit realm, and the other 7 sects will laugh away. Report the matter to the elder quickly, and form an image of the figure and appearance of the man. It is suggested that the elder should order all the disciples of Zhengyang Palace to arrest the man. However, Laozu sighed, or do not disturb them. If you find a boy in Longmen realm also need Laozu's hand, it will make people look down upon. Yes, after listening to the three elders, the man immediately drove away and disappeared into the sky. Let's go back and see the disciples, ask the reason of the matter, and see if we can find out the identity of this man from Mengan City. After the monk of Zhengyang Palace left, the three elders said with a gloomy face, and then quickly flew to Mengan City. More than 10 minutes after the people of Zhengyang Palace left, in a bush not far away, a red golden bug with 4 golden stars suddenly fluttered its wings and soon disappeared into the air. More than half an hour later, when the 4-star heartworm flew into a forest, it suddenly disappeared. Invisible Leaf Day put away this heartworm, looking at the direction of Mengan City, face a calm. It seems that did not take Zhengyang Palace things too seriously. However, he had a deeper understanding of the brutality of the so-called 8 sects in Timon's spiritual realm. He believed that the weak were the law of the jungle, and the strong could decide the life and death of others at will. The friars at the bottom were hard to cultivate and had been in dire straits for a long time. It's no wonder that most of the monks here use animal cars, at least that can bring some security. A moment later, Tian finally moves and steals away to the wind.
Mengan City has become a danger now. Although Tian is not afraid of Zhengyang Palace, it's always good to have less trouble. The direction he went to was another big city 30,000 miles away, Yihu City, which was even more famous than Mengan City. After the wind escapes thousands of miles, Tian finally removes the hidden killing technique and begins to control a top-quality flying sword. Although the hidden killing technique is good, it costs too much mana to use for a long time. More than an hour later, Tian, who was flying, suddenly stopped and turned to look behind him. After a while, a light appeared from the horizon and shot to him like a meteor. Judging from the speed, the man who controls the flying sword should be a monk in Yuanyingjing. Tian is not sure if this person is from Zhengyang Palace, so he avoids the distance of 3 or 4 li and gives way to the other party's flight direction. Unexpectedly, this man also changed his direction. It seems that he is flying towards the position of Tian. Tian eyebrows a pick, simply quietly waiting in situ. He would like to see each other as what way, find their own in the end. What is the matter?
Tian?
Soon, the friar had stopped about 4 or 5 feet away from Tian, and asked with a twinkling of his eyes.
It's really for me.
Tian also nodded slightly with his eyes, and asked, yes, it's ye.
What advice do you have for me?
It's Tian.
I'm here to take you.
The friar was a big man with a dark face. The most obvious feature was that his lips were thick. When he heard Tian admit his identity, he gave a big drink, and his body burst out. His body flashed and grabbed Tian. Tian had been on guard for a long time. 2 pairs of heavenly wings appeared in a flash behind his body. Under the fan, the whole person disappeared from the original place. When he reappeared, he was far away from the sky. The friar said softly, his face changed, but then he shot at Tian again. He didn't expect that Tian, the only one in Longmen realm, had such a magical escape speed. Although he was surprised, it was just that. He still didn't pay attention to Tian. After all, no matter how powerful a monk in Longmen realm is, where can he be? Even though this kind of evasion skill that can suddenly give birth to wings is fast, it must have some limitations. Otherwise, why didn't Tian use this skill before? On the contrary, he had some expectations in his heart. A monk in Longmen realm could use this magical escape speed with such speed. If he could get this kind of practice under the soul searching, what kind of realm would he reach with his midterm cultivation in Yuanying realm? Because of such a thought, this man was born with a will to Yi. At this time, Tian, who was already far away from the sky, saw that the monk didn't give up. Instead, he quickly flew towards himself again. He frowned slightly and flew out of his hand to enlarge in the sky. Shenrun, capture this man and search for his soul. Tian sends out a divine idea, and then a figure flies out of the magic cave and appears in front of him.
I think there are some high-level monks in your magic weapon cave.
It's just a golden elixir.
But I didn't think you could have a magic weapon cave. The monk came to Tian in the blink of an eye.
Suddenly he saw the magic cave and Shenrun flying out of it. he said with a happy face, as if this magic cave had become his bag. At this time, Xianrun, who has practiced spiritualism, is in the state of state suppression, and the realm of cultivation is indeed at the peak of the golden elixir realm. After practicing spiritualism, if you still force your cultivation to the original realm of transforming the spirit, it will cause a certain degree of loss to the body function, and the longevity will be reduced accordingly.
Therefore, Yi Tian won't let Xianrun do it until he has to. How dare the kids in Yuanian Kingdom go wild with my master?
Xianrun quickly saw the situation in front of him. His eyes could not help but chill, and his momentum burst out. Then the figure flashed, and his fingers were in his hands.